across the hat. Now there's glitter everywhere.
There's so much glitter.
I'm Taliesin Jaffe.
And I'm Erica.
And welcome to Gather Your Picture Show.
Woo!
Yes, a drunken dare can become content on Geek and Sundry.
Drunken?
This was a drunken dare.
Was this drunken?
This was at the pub.
This seems exactly like something we would do sober.
I'm trying
Look
to think
at
of
us!
the last time that was actually. Oh, so yes, this happened. And back and forth and back and forth.
We're going to be here a while.
Until we've generated enough electricity to actually run the next camera.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to an evening of Rocky Horror. This evening, we have a lot of our friends who are former or current Shadowcast members, and if you don't know what a Shadowcast member is, you'll find out tonight.
Oh, yes, we're going to have that conversation. I'm so glad that you guys can join us. I'm going to put a slight content warning on this one. We are definitely going to be saying some words and talking about some stuff.
We're going to say some swears.
And we're going to talk about sex and drugs and rock and roll and terrible things that probably my parents and your grandparents warned you about. So there is a content advisory for this one, but it's going to be a fun show, and there's a lot to learn, and I have some personal feelings about this because I was on a cast for
That's right. Taliesin is old school Rocky Horror.
There was the show, of course, and we'll be hearing from some people who know a lot, started in 1977. At the Hollywood shows 1977, as I look at Jesse Merlin off camera. But we're going to be talking about a little bit of the history and why this movie is important and why an arguably bad film is possibly the most important piece of pop art ever produced. I will die on that hill. Beyond that, I've been wanting to do this show for a while, and for reasons that I'll get into later, I figured we might as well do something unbelievably dumb and do this show.
Oh, yes.
And terrify our producer.
Towing the line. And also, big shout out to Liz Fork and Cooner for, being on Paw Patrol. This thing, I swear to God.
Well, there's glitter all over my pants.
There's a lot. Oh my God.
No, that's snort.
It's
no,
everywhere.
We need that. We need that for later. I need my magic pixie dust. Yeah, this is what you're tuned in for. Sorry. Oh God. That itches
look!
now.
I love this.
I'm covered in glitter.
Look at. So shiny.
Thank you for that.
Great.
Hi, cast. So when I originally thought about doing this show, I thought it'd be really fun to just get a whole bunch of the old school Sins of the Flesh, Rocky Horror people together to talk about the old days and like what Rocky Horror was like when I was doing it. And then I realized later, upon thinking about that I prefer the shows where I'm learning something and not just hearing about old stories, which are the same fucking stories I tell every time I go do an alumni show at the Rocky Horror. So instead, which I think is far more interesting, we got a plethora of different people from various, we got like a practical Power Ranger Sentai team.
Oh, it's a Super Sentai team.
Of good-looking youths from all wakes of life in tight-fitting, color-coordinated spandex.
Yes, I am so excited for this evening, and because I am not as familiar with Rocky Horror,
This came together really well.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, we worked on this. It was great, and thank you so much, Shalana, for the help with this.
Yes,
too,
and I'm so sorry about that 99 cent. That 99 cent
it's
glitter
so great.
top
There's
hat.
a lot of glitter on the top hat.
It was $1.
All right. Well, let's meet our cast then.
All right.
Shall we?
I'm so excited.
Woo!
Starting on my right here.
Hello, I'm Maggie Levin, and I am the ringleader of a live production called the Rocky Horror Hipster Show.
Yes.
Yeah.
What other stuff do you do in reality?
Oh, I'm a filmmaker, a writer and director, and creator of artistic things. And I came out of a major theater nerd background, so that's why I do the punk rock version that I do.
Yeah. And you were a former cast member as well?
I definitely hung out in New York for most of my teen years. The only thing that my parents were like, you can be out until 3 o'clock in the morning and we won't ask questions, where if I were at the Rocky Horror live show on Fridays and Saturdays when I was growing up. So I spent a lot of time there, and that Shadowcast very kindly let me pull out a Trixie twice. It was a really big deal for me. And then also we've got some cool waterworks going back there already.
I'm so sorry about that.
Sorry about that.
Oh no, it's all
We never
good.
think of that.
I should have
You
thrown
gotta
it
leave that for during the movie.
this way during the rain.
Oh God, do we have the bag of stuff too?
The bag of stuff. Please, we need our bag of props. Sorry, it's by the round kitchen table.
It's gonna be
I went and bought all of the traditional supplies for our Rocky Horror Picture Show viewing, which we will explain to you, which is very exciting. It's something that I remember hearing about it when I was really, really little. My dad told me about it because he apparently did Rocky back in New York long ago.
It's one of my favorite weird bits of the Rocky Horror Show, except now that I'm like an adult and have like the mental capacity for this, I'm like, all I can think is some poor fucker has to clean that every week. Oh God, I feel so bad. All those tortillas, I feel so bad. But they're so much fun.
That is how we know we have aged.
Yeah, I'm like, man, this looks expensive and
Yeah.
difficult. No, sorry about that.
Yes.
So yes, moving on the couch.
Yes. You're just going this way. Well, my name is Marley Blackwell. I am currently on Sins of the Flesh along with some other assorted Los Angeles area casts. It's a very vague description because they're spread all over the place. But we have a good amount of them out here. I've been doing Rocky about 7 years. I started going before I was of age, so it took a while before I got to performing. But I finally have gotten to that, which is amazing. That's kind of really what most of my outside of work life focuses around. It really is a lifestyle. People don't believe you when you say like, oh, I do Rocky Horror. They're like, oh, it's just a hobby. I'm like, no, it's a lifestyle. It takes up so much time and money, and people don't understand. Like most of the time we don't get paid for it, but it really is something that's driven totally by just the passion for it and the community, which I'm assuming we're going to talk a lot about.
We're going to talk about it.
Yeah, there's a reason people do this, and it's not solely based on just dressing up in fishnets and having an excuse to. Well, that's a big part of it. But yeah, that's really been the biggest part of it. Other than that, I'm a Swedish furniture salesperson by day. Exciting, I know.
No, when I'm actually, I feel like you were just trying to hop over that headline.
I know. Well, I figured you're gonna ask. What do you do outside of Rocky? And that's really it. I play video games and sell furniture and stuff like
It's
that.
specifically Swedish furniture, though.
Yes.
The big end.
You know.
There's a joke there. I'm going to workshop it until I'm comfortable.
Try not to wrench it in
You're
though.
with
Actually,
Rocky
chat.
people.
Well, I'm
There's
excited
no
too
filters here.
because like you were I wanted somebody who not I'm not casting you as the baby here, but I was like
I am the youngest.
I need
probably.
someone because I'm like I've reached the age where I'm like I don't entirely understand what people are getting out of this anymore, but people obviously are, and so I was like, please tell me what it is like now back in the land of
It's-
Neverland.
It's changed a lot. I don't know if I'd have the same experience today if I went to Rocky Horror for my first time today. I
Sure.
don't know if it was because even though it's only been 7 years, a lot has changed.
Well, that was true even when we were going. Like
Yeah,
7 years.
it's-
7 years is a long time. in
It's
Rocky
always
Horror.
evolving. I mean, it's been going on for 45 years now. I mean, 43. Sorry,
Nope,
I'm
yeah.
rounding up.
I was gonna say because I'm.
Yeah, 40th anniversary is 2015. So.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's always changing. That's one of the cool things about it, though. Yeah.
We'll get into
We will get to
into that.
Fantastic.
To the person on the couch who I actually have at least a picture of back when we were performing together. Hi,
We
darling.
were never on cast at the same time.
No, but we did an alumni show.
Yes. Anyway, hi, I'm Lana. I was on the Los Angeles cast Sins of the Flesh for 11 or 12 years. I mostly played Trixie. It's the best experience of my life. I'm still involved. I started going when I was 18, and it completely shaped me into the person that I am today, like for better or for worse. Yeah, and I love that. I love that when you first started going, you had a completely different experience than I did, than Marley did, than anybody did, because it is constantly evolving. It allows people to create their own experiences, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, you were part of like Generation 2, those damn kids, which I remember me being those damn kids, and then you were the next.
I started going in like 2003, 2004.
Oh. God.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. But hey, those bunny suits. Never mind. We'll get into that later.
Bunny
Yeah, we did
suits,
that.
huh?
Oh, you have no idea.
I don't.
I almost called Sally. Well, maybe next time. No.
She's in Arizona.
I thought you got back today.
Let's call her.
Too much inside baseball. Too much inside baseball. Sorry. God, moving on to the back, this is going to be so hard.
My name is Angelique. I was part of the Rocky Horror Picture Show Shadowcast in Orlando, Florida. I saw somebody in the chat, they knew someone who met their wife in the Shadowcast, so I don't know if there's... Yeah, that's awesome. The Orlando one was, it's different from any of the other casts that I've seen, or the other productions I've seen, because we always had an original audience every time, because we were in the City Walk in Universal. So it was all tourists all the time.
No idea.
Yeah.
How does that even...
You have to do the same show over and over. We don't evolve as much as you guys.
man.
So if you want to see like an old school show where people they're seeing it for the first time, we would have like at least half the audience every night would be virgins.
Holy cow.
So we would have at least 10 people walk out every night.
That's a good. We're gonna get into that too, because I have feelings about the whole notion of like, I like the fact that the show starts with a kind of big, if you may not want to be here, and we're gonna make sure that you find out really quickly that you may not want to be here, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with not wanting to be there. And then the only returning guest to gather on our group tonight, and I'm so glad you came out for this, because
I'm delighted.
you are such a wonderful part of my Rocky experience.
Oh,
as
back
well.
at you, Donald. Taliesin, I know, my name is Jesse Merlin. I'm a voice actor and opera singer, and I work a lot in horror films. But I think we became friends first through Rocky, actually, back when I used to perform with Sins of the Flesh. I'm old enough to remember, I think Rocky as a live experience peaked around the 15th anniversary. That's because it was right when the VHS was coming out, and that actually was kind of a bad thing for live shows. But back then there were about 200 casts, and now there's about 50. So yeah, I started going in '92 to a cast called The Erotic Nightmares, back when they would do virgin sacrifices with, oh, you're 14, come on up here, let's take your clothes off. You know, it was a wild time. I loved it. I demanded to be sacrificed 3 times. They used to call you a dirty virgin if you cheated. It's like I would just like do it again. I'm a virgin, you know. I put it back. Back when I was an opera singer, I don't do that much anymore. There was a time when my career was I was not having a great time, and so there were years up in Northern California when I performed with Barely Legal before I was part of Midnight Insanity and Sins of the Flesh, Dark Refrain, Chaos, all the cast down here, that I would rush straight from the opera theater with during Carmen, I had all of my opera makeup on from like a 1,000-seat theater, and I would go straight, hop in my car, drive 50 miles up to Oakland, keep the makeup on, and just become the criminologist. And from doing a bit part that made me miserable, all of a sudden I was, having the orgiastic catharsis that I needed. Another example, I was doing an opera in Paris, which was great because I got to live there, but it was a really bad opera, and it was kind of not a very fun experience. But my French family was the French Shadowcast, the Sweet Transvestites in Paris. I'm a member. I performed with them many times. Brigitte, the cast leader, is a dear friend of mine. If you're in Paris, you've got to check it out. It's a basement theater, maybe not even 500 meters away from the front facade of Notre Dame. This cast has streaked naked in front of Notre Dame. That's like one of their things. Whoa. And one of the funny things about that cast is 99% of the audience is virgins on any given night, but they somehow know to bring 2 liters of water and 2 pounds of rice each. So I don't know why this is the thing. It's like, oh yes, you do Rocky Horror, oh you do the rice, right? The rice. That's the thing. And the whole cast would leave the theater and like hide under tarps. They'd have to put tarps on the wall because, it's just filthy and sticky and messy and gross. We've done
Rocky
some great
Horror.
things together. Liz and I were both on the Blu-ray. If anybody
Blu-ray.
owns it, there's a picture-in-picture Shadowcast. I play the criminologist.
There's
And,
a whole documentary
documentary,
about casting it, in which Uncle Barry Bostwick
Oh, Uncle Barry.
is such a sweetheart.
Oh, he's the best. And he's hosting actually a new cast on July 6th, Forbidden Fruit at the Vista in East Hollywood in Silver Lake.
Yeah.
He will be laying his big manly hands in cement and opening the cast for us.
Hi, I'm Cement.
And hello. We also worked on the 35th anniversary convention together when
We
the
did
SimsCon.
in 2010. The Los Angeles cast threw a big Rocky Horror convention. There were almost 400 people, which, like, if you think about like big nerd conventions where there's thousands, tens, hundreds of thousands of people, it was like, ooh, 400 people, good job, guys. But I mean, you realize Rocky's such a small community thing. We don't have a lot of money. This is all self-funded. So the fact that so many people came and traveled, and we put on this huge show. I mean, we had we had the actors come. We had a full roster of programming. It was amazing.
400 people from all over the world,
From
but for
all
the
over
big
the
show we had
world.
over 1,000 for
Oh,
the
yeah.
actual The Rocky show.
Because and like my memory is foggy because of things I've done in my life, and I'm going to ask you to just contextualize.
Yes.
The small show was the one with where they had the throne set up in the dance hall, or was that the one with the, and please this is going to sound pretty dirty no matter what I say, or was that the one with the bathtub in the hotel room with the ridiculous hand chair?
Yeah, bathtub hotel
Okay.
chair. Can we say which hotel it was at?
Oh sure, why not?
It was at the Standard
It's a standard.
downtown.
Okay, so that was what went because that
Yeah.
was ridiculous. Okay, I was trying to
So,
remember which show was which.
People in
Jesus.
chat have been asking, what is a shadow cast and what is this experience we're talking about? What is a virgin sacrifice? So I guess start from the beginning, like when your parents are like, hey, what is this thing that you do?
Nothing.
Nothing, Mom. It's totally cool.
I'm hanging out with Marley. At church.
I used to sneak out. I was like full on sneaking out like late at night. I still to this day don't know if my parents knew just how much I was going out.
My mom's like, oh, that eater thing you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mom, that one.
I mean, like, your parents were okay with
Oh
it?
yeah, but my parents are like hippie artists. My mom's a ballerina and my dad's a bassist, and they were like, "Look, as long as you're not doing so many drugs that you don't, as long as you come home, we're
That-
cool." That's a slight
You make
exaggeration,
so
but,
much
like,
more sense now.
But it's also like, you know, I feel like if I brought home what I was doing, they would be more worried. So like, keep it in Chelsea, and it's fine.
Oh man, that's funny. Well, no, never mind. I'm not allowed to tell that joke.
Yeah, but I'm kind of, somebody else should really dig into what the movie experience is about, because so much of my life was like, I did the live show and I stalked the Broadway cast in 2001, and like I did Magenta in upstate New York, but like
Ooh.
singing
You Magenta?
singing out loud.
Magenta? Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
shit.
that's kind of like my, you know.
I guess starting with
Yeah, like shadow casting.
everything first. The Rocky
Yeah.
Horror
All right.
Picture Show
Rocky
is
Horror
a
Picture Show.
cult film from the 1975.
It's a musical.
It's a musical.
Stage musical.
Yeah, it was a stage musical, and then it became a film starring Tim Curry and Susan Sarandon, and those are the people that mostly came out of
Meatloaf.
that film.
Meatloaf.
Yeah.
Right. And it's just really campy
That was-
and fun, and a sort of cult phenomenon grew up around it, where there are midnight showings of this film with live casts that will act out the movie as it happens and mime along with it, and there are callbacks that people do, so people know to say certain things to the screen when God.
Apologize to us.
There is literally glitter everywhere.
That's how it's supposed to be, though, man.
There is. I have a special surprise for everybody who's watching right now on Twitch. There is now glitter on your PC, on your PlayStation. Surprise! We figured out how to transmit glitter as a virus.
So
It's not going anywhere.
I guess let's see, where was I? So there are certain things that you say to the screen and certain items that are thrown at specific points, and I don't know. I guess that sort of the
That sums it up.
you know.
Generally, kind of evolved out of the callbacks. People would start shouting things at the screen. They'd call Janet a slut. They tell her to get an umbrella. And then people just started jumping up, and it turned into a whole thing. It was very organic.
Did it started and especially those who really know the history started in like 77
Yeah, and
in Hollywood.
That's when the midnight screenings really became a thing, because the general release bombed everywhere except for like Austin, LA, and New York. That's where people just kept coming. It was the same people week after week. And there was an executive at Fox in 77, 78 who didn't even like the movie, but he saw potential there. He's like, we're going to market this as a midnight movie. And now, just trivia, it's the longest running theatrical release movie in history. If you look at it based on the budget versus how much money it's made, it's one of the most profitable movies ever made. But one of the things I'd like to point out about the fandom that makes it so different compared to other,
Yes.
fandoms and other cosplays is it's truly performative, and it is Don't Dream It, Be It. It's not just dressing up. It's like we're doing the whole show. We're putting on, with scenery and lights and costumes and a pre-show that stretches to an hour, hour and a half, or far too long usually.
The movie starts at
The LA pre-show is no joke. When I went, I was like,
It's tightened up.
holy crap!
Yeah,
I'm gonna
has
go to
tightened
bed.
Has it? Has it
Yes.
finally tightened up?
Got a rejuvenation.
You get out
Can I
of the
say
theater
that?
by like 3 a.m.
Instead of 4.
Right. 2:33.
There's still time to go to Norm's.
It's amazing. I was going to say, it's amazing that we go that late in a city that literally there's not a restaurant open after
Right,
2
no,
a.m.
Norm's is down the street from the new one.
When we're
Not
allowed.
anymore.
That's true.
No.
My friends used to they didn't like us coming anymore, and then they lost half their business because
Yeah.
they didn't like us.
Well, there's this like sub history to Rocky Horror Shadowcasts of the rotation of diners that were allowed in.
Because
at
you
any
would
given
wait for
time.
managers to either retire or die, and then you would go back to that Denny's, and they'd be like fine with you for about 5 months or 6 months. They're like, well, you can't come here anymore.
I've named all the Denny's. The Santa Monica one is 23.5-hour Denny's because they closed for a half hour once.
Is that the one near Venice Boulevard?
It's on Lincoln.
Okay, yeah.
The one in Hollywood
ended up in a
is
tree once.
stripper Denny's.
Yeah. That's fair.
That's like a fairly universal thing because I'm a super East Coast person originally, and we terrorize diners as well.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Exactly. It's
why is
community
that?
wide.
Yeah.
We had
That's the only thing open. At
You're like,
4
I need
a.m.
pancakes at 4:30,
At least
but
you guys
I'm
have
not
good delis.
gonna put on a shirt.
I licked something off a stranger once at a Denny's post Rocky.
That sounds right.
Yeah.
A stranger is honestly on a certain thing just an object you haven't licked yet. Sorry. I'm gonna get in so much trouble tonight.
Yeah, I know
Oh
where-
wow, is it that stranger?
No, but I licked him, so I claimed him.
That's fair. It's like it's a flag.
Touch it, I keep it.
Yeah.
It's mine.
Yeah.
Oh no. I'm having terrible.
19.
I found a bunch of Denny's photos from the old days, but all of them were inappropriate to show on the internet.
You show me after.
I know, there was like scanned photos because this was before
bless.
digital cameras. Oh God.
So somebody was sober enough to get them developed.
All I'll say is like I'm there, Brad's there, Joseph's there, and there's definitely an albino in the corner, and you know what that means. Yeah.
Wait, who did you mainly perform when you were shadowing?
I was a criminologist. I did Dr. Scott, which I actually have a picture of me as Dr. Scott.
Oh, yeah?
And a picture of me as a criminologist that I think we loaded.
Oh.
I found 3 photos. I found 3 photos that I could show from actually, but they're the criminologist is from like my first year as alumni.
Okay.
Like all the photos of me actually performing are all not appropriate.
Oh, wow.
So there's my crim. There's a crim. I'm definitely in my
baby
I'm a baby there. That is
It's like a Harry Potter robe.
I know. That coat is great. That coat was a little ridiculous.
Oh my goodness.
I love it.
Are there any of the other ones in there too, or?
Yep.
Oh yeah, please go ahead. Let's drag them.
Wow.
I love baby pics. It's always my
Yeah.
favorite. Curtains.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
That's a little more recent, and that's
The-
definitely my favorite pair of fishnets.
Sonic screwdriver.
People loved using the sonic screwdriver for the finger. That was for the, and then we put the toilet
Yeah.
roll on it and did a
Perfect.
run. It was really great.
Perfect.
That was a good fun.
Just this week, I donated my electric leaf blower toilet paper shooter to the cast.
Well, there you go. Isn't that picture? You're so cute.
That is clearly at 3 a.m. at a diner.
I am. No, that's at the new
theater.
art.
That's the concession stand.
That's the concession stand.
Yeah.
And that was definitely just after ripping the mustache off my
Yeah.
face because that thing
I
is
stuck
awful.
your face, so.
Was that the? No, that was not the evening I had to help you redress. That was all another. That was a different.
Oh, I don't remember that.
I have
That was
pictures.
earlier today.
That's true.
I'd love to make a point about the cultural significance just because, like,
Yeah.
it's become very mainstream. It's on TV. It was on Glee. They've had a remake. We all saw the VH1 thing in 1995, right? Yeah, no.
Let's never talk about that.
Speak of the reboot.
Well, yes, no comment. No, but it's become very mainstream. It's become very suburban, and it's great in the big cities, but probably where it's most needed is the culturally remote parts of red state America, where in the 70s and 80s, it was the place for queer kids, for outsider kids, for not gender nonconforming kids. It was maybe the only safe place you could go at night on a Saturday, and that became a really a big part of its history. Like I say, it's a lot more mainstream now, but in the early days, especially in the '70s, the Gay Liberation Front, which was an avowedly Marxist movement, was like one of the core parts of the audience in New York and some of the big cities. It was like, it wasn't just edgy, it was transgressive and it was political and it was, and now a little bit problematic, but from the way we look at things now, but
Well, 21st century.
It was such a significant thing, especially in Florida, because you're by so many southern states. Our director at the time got a bigger house because so many LGBT people who were kicked out of their homes would gravitate towards the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and he would find out that they were homeless, and he would have them live in his home until they could get on their feet again, or find somewhere else, and because that was a safe place.
That's so cool.
Even LA in the '90s when we were in the '90s when I was coming out of junior high school, getting into high school, we were still having fights with the administration about whether or not we could have gay and lesbian youth clubs in the high schools, and starting to this is California, this is LA, but we're still having that conversation was still going on, and the only reason any of the kids in school knew who those kids were was because we were all going to Rocky on Saturday. That was basically the unofficial. That was the unofficial figure out. And again, this was also before the terminology had blossomed, and it was the gay, straight, and other, which was a broad other. But we were it's chocolate, vanilla, strawberry. Let's see, 51 flavors. You're mad. What do you do with rum raisin? You can't put rum in ice cream. God, raisin doesn't go in ice cream. It was definitely a place to kind of do the. I don't quite understand what I am, but I'm happy to. This is a place where I can kind of figure it out.
It still is.
Relatively safely.
Like Rocky was the first place that I could just be out. Surprise, I'm gay. What? What? Great. Happy Pride Month.
Happy Pride Month.
Yeah.
Right,
Just
yeah.
that little touch. But yeah, I mean, coming out of an adolescence of like a certain family situation and high school situation, it was so safe for me to just be queer at Rocky. No, there was no judgment. There was no second thought. It was just like, okay, cool. That's nice. Do you want to join tech or what do you? Go kiss that girl. Whatever. Lift this. So yeah.
Lift this girl, kiss that prop. Okay.
It sounds cheesy to say that it saved lives, but
Absolutely.
honestly,
Absolutely.
but you talk to almost any person who has found Rocky, you'll almost every time find that they found a safe place in that. Like for me, especially my personal experience with it is I was born here, but I was raised in Texas. Growing up in Texas is not a fun time if you're gay, or at least that was not my experience. So I had no idea what Rocky Horror was. I was a band geek, which kind of coordinated with musical theater kids. Like we were all kind of like hanging out, and my friend Adriana actually showed me the Rocky Horror Picture Show. She brought the DVD to my house. I was 14. My mom wasn't very happy about this, but we watched it, and I was obsessed. I was just right off the bat, like collecting, watching it every day. I knew all the words, and I didn't even know that the shadow cast was a thing. I just loved this movie because it was like, this is just so cool, right? It's like bending the rules, it's like pushing the limits, and this is exactly what I needed. And then she tells me, yeah, they do midnight shows of this. I was like, what does that even mean? What do you mean they do shows? What? Like, it's a movie? Huh? So I tell my mom's like, oh yeah, it's a thing, but you shouldn't go to that. There's naked people and drugs. You shouldn't do
She
that.
might as well be like she's like a parent in a Twisted Sister
It
video
was,
at that
which
point.
is funny. My mom has become this very uptight person as an adult, but she used to be like a groupie. Like she was like, and now she's all for like, no, you're gonna be exactly like the other kids, and you're gonna, and it's like, yeah, but she knew what Rocky Horror was. She'd been to Rocky Horror, but she acted like, no, we don't do that in this house.
Oh, wow.
It took a year for me of me begging her, being like, can I see this thing? Can you take me to this thing? And finally, for my 15th birthday, she finally took me with a group of friends. The whole time, though, she's like, we should go. This is bad. We should go. Can RHPS hold the same significance to a straight person? Absolutely.
Totally.
Oh,
Everybody in chat
absolutely.
right
It has nothing to
Totally.
do with just gay, straight, trans, any of that. It's if you're in any sort, even if you're not an outcast, you can probably find some sort of significance. But if you've ever found, I think what's so special about it is it creates a place where you fit in regardless of who you are. Like it's this weird little magical corner of the world where nobody looks at you twice for being different. And I think that that's so incredibly important. So, I mean, I'm sure everyone in their life has at some point not felt like they fit in. Like, there's no question about that. So if you go to Rocky, you're gonna feel like you fit in. That's really the bottom line. That's why it's so cool, is because it's just this little thing that just exists. And that's things I had no idea. So when I went there, and I was like barely out of the closet, because I was like, I don't know, I didn't want to like tell people at school, get bullied. No, I don't know, it was a whole like, my mom didn't want me to be gay, so I didn't like talk about it really. But I went to Rocky and I was like, there's girls. They're pretty. And I remember the first time I went, I was wearing like my Limited 2 t-shirt and like this like, I don't know what was happening. I was wearing some like cheetah pants, who knows? And I went and like
some shit back.
this girl in a corset, I tell them it's my birthday and she hugs me and I'm like, my chest is like near her like, you know, boobs, and I'm like, I'm gay. This is and I wasn't scared to say I was gay because it's Rocky and nobody could care less.
I had a bad joke there when I think.
Really?
Yeah, it was
do
just-
you want to?
I'm great. I'm great. Yeah, it's right in there. I'm great. Just yelling it into what's in front of you.
But I mean, that was the coolest thing.
Let me just check one more time.
Rocky Horror was the first time in my
Measure twice.
entire existence, 15 years of existence, of not feeling accepted. And Rocky Horror was the first time in my life that I ever felt that I ever knew what that was like, and what I knew what it was like to not feel scared to be who I am. And that blew my mind. I didn't think that existed.
No, and it's one of the. I remember even like when we were doing casts, like there were physical threats occasionally on the outside of that theater. It's like you would have to like, and it was comforting to know that you know, occasionally one of the kids would get jumped, and we'd have a posse of kids in to like break it up and chase the people with sticks away with slightly bigger sticks and get everybody in, give them a drink of something green that was mostly toxic. And oh god, what was in that stuff? I tried to find the recipe and it was
Is this
Romulan ale?
a traditional?
it was Romulan ale. You remember Romulan ale?
I don't drink.
Oh, that's right. You're okay.
I do all of this stuff sober.
This is
guys.
why I tried to get Vesta here, is because Vesta drinks. Vesta has a goth club to go to tonight. You know, it was the stuff that they would pour you in the Dixie cup, and they'd be like, drink quick, because if you didn't, it would eat through the Dixie cup. That stuff was good. No, it wasn't. It was
I
terrible.
want to
but-
try this.
Yeah, Romulan ale. I'm trying to remember who used to. Was it Troy used to? Yeah.
That sounds like
It sounds like Troy.
Definitely does.
It's so cool that like it's such a universal and
It's
cross
everywhere, yeah.
generational. I mean, like I know that for so many people, Rocky has to have been the first time that they've seen someone seen a transvestite, which like. Or anyone cross-dressing or gender bending in any capacity. I know that it was like that and a little bit of like Velvet Goldmine that for
Oh.
me were like, oh, I'm not into like a boy that looks like a boy. It's kind of different for me, and like yeah, just that same spirit of acceptance and like freedom to just kind of figure it out. Exists in movie theaters that play this movie across America. It's really cool.
You know, it's funny for me. My experience seeing it was like a lot later in life. Like we're talking, it would have been almost exactly 5 years ago now, probably to the day, because
I know.
What?
I'm performing
I
next
see.
week.
Yes,
I'm
I seen it
performing
once.
next week.
I
You
was
should
not
come.
de-virginized because I guess there were so many virgins that night.
There
They
was
just
a
like picked
glut.
one person out of the audience and stuff. But because
That's the term for a group of virgins.
a glut
of
of virgins. So there's got to be a better word for that.
No.
A prettier word for that.
The flowering ritual.
Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh
Oh my gosh. So
Sorry.
Oh,
no, yeah, no.
We're
that's-
going there.
Yeah, we were definitely gonna talk about that, and then I brought props, and yeah, it's gonna be good. So I feel fortunate. I grew up in LA in like a really liberal community, and so I was always free to explore like sexuality and ideas about gender and So
Chat's getting drunk.
Very good. Good
Sorry,
job.
carry on. Carry on.
Hashtag
Glut virgins. Well done.
But I was at, like, in the first week of dating somebody and being in this group of people that was also, like, very similarly minded. But they all had kind of discovered a lot of themselves through Rocky Horror when they were younger. And we were all, like, at a cross-dressing party. And then we're like, let's go to Rocky. And so we just went directly from the cross-dressing party to a Rocky Horror screening. And and so I was like, oh, I understand. Like, seeing that movie, I was like, I understand these people.
Everybody
Drink! Yeah, I understood. And I could see how important this film was, and it was very striking to me how like I didn't discover things through this film, but I can see I can't think of any other film.
Oh man, I learned so much about myself.
I can't think of any other film that explores these concepts.
Well, it's
and that is known in the mainstream.
It's weird because I mean, like, and we'll get into the film itself because the film itself is a weird reality, but like, and again, the other reason why I'm sad Vesta isn't here is because she wrote so eloquently about. I love her blog, and I don't want to embarrass her by like sending people to it, but like. Her whole notion of transgression, like the notion of transgression being this very necessary thing, and like especially for a young person, you have to have limits on yourself, and then you have to break those limits. It's all about like definitely like and having a place where you can relatively safely explore and break the limits of who you are and test your boundaries. It was so important. And
Ivan also wrote about ritual and Rocky Horror in like teenage coming of age ceremonies.
Oh yeah, Ivan also performed at the Well, that's a whole. Ivan.
That's another. We won't talk about that.
Freak church.
Freak church.
Because there's call and response. I mean, it's like Catholic Church for freaks. Because it's like you become part of a collective mass, like this amorphous identity. It's like, oh yeah, this is some of these jokes are older than most of the people sitting here. Like they're canonical, going back to the first one in '77 to the participation album in '83 and scripts.
Over time, and like some lines live and some lines die, and I will admit, I just like there is something very religious about eventually like going in and like, can I please wield the giant cock this week? And they're like, no, that's already been claimed. You
Captain
don't get to do
Pecker,
that.
yes.
There's an art form to that fucking thing.
That makes a lot of sense why I was so drawn to it and why I felt so natural being part of the Rocky Horror Picture Show when I was, because I didn't come out, or at least I mean I was so in the closet I was having tea with Mr. Tummins. I mean I was it was pretty bad, and I finally got to the point like, okay, maybe I like girls, and I started going to the Rocky Horror Picture Show and just really they just showed me like, oh, you can actually love yourself and be okay with everything, and maybe that ritual of pseudo religion really helped, because that was the reason I was in the closet, was heavy religion. I just replaced one religion with another.
Well, and that's one of the things I really like about the Virgin Sacrifice, and like the marking, like one of the things they do if you haven't been before is we mark your face with lipstick with a V, which I apologize to any. We really have to make sure that we use the stuff that doesn't cause pimples, and we're like the hypoallergenic stuff now.
Oh yeah, we definitely do that.
I tried when I was doing it. I was like,
$1 Wet and Wild.
no man, I was trying to be I was trying to be a stand-up guy, man.
When you were writing cock across somebody's chest, yeah.
I was always big about the big plumage. I liked a series of V's that like look like lizard skin. I like to do something complicated and class.
You would.
I was a classicist. Yeah. But one of the reasons, and I always felt the one of the reasons for this thing that's kind of mysterious and dark, and it's like it has, I'm going to say, similarities to like a Freemasonry. You don't know what's happening when you don't know what's going to happen to you when you get in there. Rite of initiation, where there's like they're talking about virginity, and they're like, you're going to get on stage and you might be asked to do some stuff, and it might be transgressive and kind of weird, and you might not
Like a bat mitzvah.
Yeah, it's like a bat mitzvah. But what bat mitzvahs were you going to? God, I got to up my game. Was that?
It's like a coming of age, or like a first communion, or a baptism.
Well, and also it was
like a trial by
a
fire.
wonderful.
Trial by
The
fire.
initiation meant that there was that you had to make this leap of vulnerability. That if you weren't willing to make that leap of vulnerability to be part of the show, you didn't get to go. I mean, you wouldn't want to
I
go.
mean, people would welcome you there, but then you'd be like, oh, this isn't for me.
We would definitely it was a nice way of making sure that like you're not going to want to be here. You're not going to enjoy this, and it's just going to make you angry. So
And that's okay.
and that's okay, but you should totally do it outside so we don't have to like call the cops because you hit some poor gay kid. So no, I mean like it's a great way of just kind of like it's like that first barrier of like okay, you're gonna be in this theater and we're gonna get you on stage and you're gonna have to make orgasm sounds in the voice of Donald Duck, and they're like nope, ain't doing that. I'm like cool, dude.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
No shame,
Yeah.
but like there's a ticket price.
If you can't handle that, you can't handle the guy in fishnets and heels.
It's not for everyone. It's not
No.
everyone's cup of tea at
And
all.
not everything has to be for everybody. That's
Exactly.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's things that are for everybody are dull.
Yes, the live experience is significantly different from watching
Oh,
the film.
yeah.
So
I
yes.
actually had this argument with Hector like
Hector Navarro,
years
yeah.
ago. Some of you might remember that tonight. I was right because he was like, "Oh, I watched the Rocky Horror Picture Show at home and stuff, and it was like weird. I didn't really like it." I'm like, "Why would you just watch it at home by yourself? Like that's not part of the that's not the experience of watching. You haven't really seen.
Was
the
it
film.
unexpected, John? Was
Right?
it really? Sorry,
Yeah.
carry on.
So it feels like, which is why I'm a little surprised that when you watched it, Marley, when you watched it on your own, that you still got enough out of it. Was it just because
Yeah,
of the
I don't know
themes
what's
of it?
wong with me, dude.
It's a similar
I've always-
experience.
Well, I like musicals. My taste in music is ridiculous. So I really think it's the soundtrack for me. Like people will argue, and I saw in the chat someone wanted to talk about Shock Treatment.
The
and I'm
sequel, yeah.
sure
Oh, we're gonna
we will
talk
talk
about
about
Shock
Shock Treatment. Everyone
we are.
says Shock Treatment's trash, blah blah. blah. I'm like,
the
but have you
music,
heard
the music.
soundtrack?
And how,
is
like,
amazing.
It's on my Spotify playlist.
And how prescient it is.
Yeah.
So
Of, like,
it-
how reality TV got invented.
yeah,
The songs are great.
They're so
Oscar
good.
Drill and the Bits
really
is like
cool.
is another yeah.
it's
yeah.
great. Yeah, I think it's probably just the music or something. Maybe the cinematography. I was totally into Men Just as Women. I love Hedwig and the Angry Inch.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
Tu Wong Fu. Like I have a
Yeah.
thing. If I were to ever be with a man in my weird like if I were straight fantasy, which is not gonna happen, it would be Tim Curry as Frankenfurter, Hedwig.
Yeah.
A third one, it'd probably be Patrick Swayze and Tu Wong Fu.
Nice.
That's pretty hot.
It's
You're running
those.
out of
Those are my.
options,
That's like my
Marley.
three. If I had to, but yeah, it's weird musicals get me.
But yeah, it's I mean, yeah, we're gonna get
Well, I
into
think like what Jesse, you used a really great word earlier, which was catharsis, and that is such a you get to go into this show. You are yelling. You're yelling all of the bad cuss words, like all the ones that you're like the extra bad ones. You're throwing things. You're dressing up in your underwear and running around. It's just this like explosion of whatever was pent up from the week.
Oh God.
It's incredible. You get to just let go. And I think like God, especially this day and age, it's a space to do that.
It's a spa treatment for the soul these days.
Not
Yeah.
to give anyone bad ideas, a certain friend of ours I won't name, I'm pretty sure had sex in every part of the theater during this show over the years, including the
I was
front
about to say,
row,
one night?
more
on
than
stage, backstage.
More than one.
Yeah, well, yes, I guess it'd be a list.
Okay.
But I'd like to
Ticket
say the
booth,
movie kind
I'm
of
not doing my
dies.
list, but I'm just saying there's the ticket booth, green room,
Projection booth.
projection booth, back row, front row, on stage,
alley.
back alley,
The exit.
in the tank,
The
in the exit row, behind the subway back when there was subway parking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
This is also, for an awkward, alienated kid, outsider of any sexual orientation or stripe.
Yeah.
One of the nice things about the movie is it kind of dies about the third act. About 2/3 of the way through, it really just kind of dies, and that's the time to make out. And it's just like, I'm like, oh, am I not making out here? Well, I failed this weekend. I better come back next week.
Oh yeah.
Oh man. Oh man. I still occasionally go to cons and like I'll be at a convention and somebody would be like Taliesin. I'm like, oh cool. You watching the internet? It's like, no, we made out in 1996. I'm like, fuck, we did. Holy shit. Like, oh no.
Yes, they renovated the new art. It's been like 10 years at this
I know, I
point,
don't
but
like
like no, none of us do. But like when they tore out the seats, we were like, the that's probably a good thing.
Don't shine any lights on it.
No black light.
No flashlights.
You don't want to know.
No,
yeah.
anytime they would run like Pink Floyd The Wall, and everyone would like, oh wow, you got it to light up so well, and we're like, yeah. I'm like,
Yeah, so there's a certain level of exhibitionism
There is some
of varying degrees.
One of my favorite things from, again, our show is a little bit different. It's,
no, I mean like, yeah.
you know, I hope that none of my cast members are watching, because I'm
couple
gonna
might be.
ruin one of their lives. There was a girl who was very Janet-esque, who was one of our chorus members, and when I was shocked that she stayed with us about 2 weeks in rehearsal. I was like, she's gonna cut out of here. She's terrified. But come dress rehearsal during the in the movie, it's like a pool orgy. In our version, it's just, I guess y'all just make out on stage and roll around on the floor.
That's kind of our version too, but yeah.
But it was like, for everyone else, it was like, you know, we're just performing, rubbing up against each other. And dress rehearsal, I was like, what happened to Mac, who's our Frank, and Taylor? Because they had like vanished from my view. And then they came up, and Taylor, who's always like beautiful, put together makeup, was just like, oh. And I was like, yes, we got her. We got through.
Well, and your show is specific because you're not a shadow cast,
No,
which
yeah.
is specifically why I asked you onto the show, because you did something a little more interpretive, which was actually like
We do
Kind of weird.
closer to what was like the Roxy or the London or the stage show. So that there are some differences. There are just some things that you can't do on stage that happen in the movie, and then some other things that we add in.
Embellish.
Yeah, but there's, I think, an equal amount of like debaucherous excitement.
It's fun to watch, and
And
like
it happens at a bar, so like, you know, you can drink heavily. The cast does.
And is there still like
The
audience
drummer-
audience participation
Yes.
and callbacks?
Yeah. And we
Just with
do
live shows. Oh, that's so wild.
That's one of
so
the
great.
things that's like kind of weird is I went and watched the live.
there we go.
Oh.
Yeah, there's our people.
I'll also say at any moment now, they'll probably that chat may recognize a couple people because there's a few Geek and Sundry alumni.
Oh yeah, you really
show
get a
up,
sense of what we're like here.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh my god.
There was 10 seconds of Jeff.
Oh, we should go.
And there's Troy.
Yeah. It's like clubs.
Yeah. I'm really excited that you're bringing this back. This makes me so happy.
It was like, also it happened.
Oh,
Wait,
yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Oh
Jeff
my
is our Rocky.
god.
Body, but yeah, he is. I mean, to be fair, he is built like Adonis. So yeah, of course.
Was he a Rocky? Oh,
yeah.
my goodness.
Yep.
Yep. There we go, chat.
Oh,
Thank
Jeff.
you. Chat likes Jeff.
Oh, good. Yeah, we got.
Oh.
Totally crushing on your
Oh, marvelous.
That was great.
That was amazing.
We all gotta go.
I know.
No, it's not.
Please come to the show.
Let's
do it.
I love your shit. I'm always down for your shit.
It is. It's like my most wonderful time of the year. Fuck Christmas, like Halloween, Rocky season is like my jam.
If you're a Rocky Horror performer, don't expect to ever celebrate Halloween a different way again.
I also like there was a decade where I just didn't see Saturday Night Live. Like
Oh, yeah.
I was like very surprised. Like there's like
Right?
300 shows I can catch up
Yeah.
on now that I've retired.
Your Saturdays are done.
Yeah.
You're booked.
Oh, people see
300.
Koi.
I did like 300 plus.
Yeah.
I don't even know like how many shows did I do?
I stopped counting because
Yeah.
I had
that's
to
a
do the
whole
maths.
thing.
Yeah. I got into the hundreds.
There's 52 weeks a year.
Yeah, and I did it literally every week for
every
a
week.
decade.
When
and
was the last time you went?
I crashed a couple times. I haven't performed since last year was the last time I performed.
Yeah.
Or was it the time before?
I don't know, but somebody you like's performing next
I
week.
know.
Maybe
So
come.
I want to talk a little bit about the international scene too, if I can
Oh,
mention
man.
that, because it means different things in different places. You know, it's the Japanese cast, some of our favorite people. They're awesome.
They're so great.
There's a cast. There has been a cast in Italy. There's a bunch of activity, and Germany's one of the biggest audiences in the world. That's where the live show basically never stops touring. It's some of our favorite, craziest friends in Tel Aviv have a cast called the Holocast. You know, so like,
Oh,
no,
bad.
but I know
so
it is
bad.
bad, but it's like they're
I know.
transforming their own experience, right? You know, it's just like.
There's Canadian casts.
But it's interesting.
just
It's
called the
very
Canadian
American.
cast.
The one place that's never really been big. Yeah, right. The
too easy.
very polite
Sorry.
cast. It's never really been that big as a Shadowcast thing in the UK because they're
Right.
much more focused on the actual stage show.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to mention one thing about the French cast. I don't think we could ever do it in the United States. For total sexual chaos during the seduction scenes and the bedroom scenes, the whole cast goes into the audience and starts humping people. And they literally just throw legs up and start violently humping people. And during Touch a Touch, they bring everybody on stage and they pull a train and everybody's humping each other. And I've saw pictures of this before I started performing there. It's like, what on earth are they doing? They also had a 15-year-old Janet. So they were doing a lot of things that you really wouldn't want to do.
We have rules here.
Yes, now there are.
There are definitely rules here these days. Oh
That's
man.
the thing is, how does Rocky and that sort of communal chaos, controlled chaos, survive in this day and age of waivers and
Well, I'm-
you know, and also a lot of the terms are not really copacetic anymore.
The bedroom
How do you
scenes
deal
are
with it?
difficult.
Yeah.
I mean, like, and I'm sure you can speak to that. We kind of sort of started figuring this shit out a little early, which helped. Because you can't put that many young people into a theater trying to grope each other every Saturday night before somebody walks in there and is like, we need some organization here, or else this
We
is
must
just
have order.
there's got to be some sense to this clusterfuck. Yeah.
There's there somewhere.
Yeah, it's really and so like rules started like slowly maturing about what you could and could not get away with and what was appropriate.
I think just like in any scene, subculture, community, whatever it is, you know, there are problems, and as things have evolved as a society and we have better language for consent, we have better enforcement of things like that.
Oh yeah.
I think Rocky is actually a really great place for the nascence of some of this, like how you were saying. Like, we started figuring it out, and I think now it's really being put into action, and not just here in LA, but throughout the community. Just a sense of everybody's here to have fun. We want everybody to be safe, have a good time, but, you know, don't be dicks to each other.
Yeah, you're gonna. I mean, like you're gonna transgress, and especially you're gonna have a lot. You're gonna have, you know, you're gonna have young people there. You're gonna, and they're gonna definitely be going a little crazy. But like, there's always there's. I used to call it bumper bowling. Sexual experimentation.
Well, and I think also too is we've gotten to a point where you can look at the Rocky Horror Picture Show, the movie, and go, okay, well, transvestite, that's not really a term we use anymore. There are some scenes where there's some non-consensual stuff going on. I think a lot of people recognize that it's problematic, but I think, you know, we address it in a way where we acknowledge that it's problematic and still create a scene and a show that has evolved.
Yeah, I will say, like, one of the things I really like about the show is that while the film is happening on screen, the vibe and the energy that comes from the live show is
Recontextualizes
completely recontextualized. Is that the actors, like, especially in like the blue sheet red sheet sequences.
Yeah.
Like, I love how much fun everybody on stage is having with that. Instead of being married to what's happening in the story, it's just how dumb can we... anytime there's a pregnant Janet, I am the happiest camper on earth. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Is like, while this whole scene is happening, they have a shadow puppet, and they will literally like put the Janet into and just start pulling props with the shadows
Yes.
of like anything from basketball, live chicken, tennis racket, and then the spank with the tennis racket, and like
Pickaxe.
pickaxe comes out of like...
There's so much more creativity with bedroom scenes if you have a sheet and you're miming shadows.
It's
good.
backlit.
It's so fun. When you, as someone who plays Frank, when you are at a cast that doesn't have sheets and you have to actually act out bedroom scene, it is the worst
Yeah.
thing. It's like the worst few minutes of your life because you're just like, what am I doing? Should we?
Sorry,
do you want to like
sorry,
pretend to do butt
sorry.
sex now? Okay. All right, it's almost over, guys. Okay.
We like for a while
Doesn't get easier.
we had cookies during the dinner scene. We'd actually have a little pastries put out. One of the cast members would bring pastries.
Oh, yeah,
and
I used to bake all the time.
yeah.
Some of my favorite
tech
casts, they
food.
don't even do Dr. Scott's
tech
dinner scene.
food.
It's like they put on music and beach balls and it'll be a party,
Yeah.
like a union
Yeah.
break.
Well, during dinner scene, I mean, we literally,
good call.
literally
Yeah.
announced to the
I wanna do it.
audience to go make out because the scene is so
Yeah, it's so
boring.
boring.
So it's actually worth acknowledging here, and this is a discussion that I always like having, is that there is a very reasonable argument for this being a genuinely bad film. I don't agree. I don't agree, but like you can make that argument, especially as a film critic, you can make that argument, and it's a perfectly good. It's a very valid argument for this not being a good film. But as an artistic expression, as a piece of artistic film expression, it may be the most successful piece. If you consider the notion that art is something that interacts with a viewer and the viewer has an experience, has an emotional experience, whether it is the intended experience or similar or completely different, and there's some arguments there as to what the original intent was of the film. This may be the most successful piece of pop art ever created.
Right. Does it move you in some way?
And it moves. I was trying to even find. Did you ever read the Max?
Yeah.
Do you remember there was an issue of the Max where they went to the Rocky Horror Show and like the main character like had a complete emotional breakdown during the Don't Dream It, Be It. He's like I totally get it now, and he's just sobbing and like going through all of his catharsis while his friends are like, "Can you shut the fuck up?"
It's
The
been that
Rocky Horror appears
forever.
in other pop culture.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's in Fame.
Yeah.
In a musical.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like a
That was
huge
huge.
transformative experience for the
Wallflower.
like
There's a little bit in
girl.
Simpsons.
Yeah.
Simpsons,
Right.
Perks-
It
Perks-
hurts.
I know that people don't like the Glee version, but I will say it brought in a
Oh.
whole
I
new
know.
crop of people.
Oh, totally.
Like some of our best cast members that we had, they had never heard of Rocky Horror until they saw that Glee episode, and we're like, "Welcome."
For all that show's faults, I do appreciate the message in a bottle that I felt like it's like, come down to the fourth ring of hell. We're having chips and dip.
Yeah, it reached people who may not have otherwise found Rocky.
You really have to give a lot of love to Jim Sharman, the director, and also Richard O'Brien, of course, the creator. But Jim Sharman was offered 10 times the budget by Fox if they would put Mick Jagger in as Frank and bring in celebrities, and he said, "No, I'll take 800,000 pounds and make it with the original cast." And they went over budget and they went over time, and executives came in about 2 weeks before wrap and looked around at the set. It's like they almost had the plug pulled during production because they're like, "What the hell? What is this movie?" It's funny how it's come to mean almost. It's come to mean for a lot of people the entire midnight movie experience, but there is, if you place it in context, it's part of a larger tradition. Like you watch it, it has this wonderful look and feel of a Gothic Hammer film, you know, which I love that about it. I mean, even the location. A lot of great movies featuring Charles Gray, like The Devil Rides Out. A lot of great Hammer films were shot in that same castle. But the text of it and the original show is much more about 50s America and Brad and Janet. Original title, they came from Denton High. Glad they changed it, right? It was all 1950s, you know, these good kids, you know, Ike would have been proud of them. And then the opening song, it references all these wonderful, you know, from the Universal Pictures of the 30s through the great monster movies of the 50s. It's like, it's part of that. And I want to jump in on what we were talking about, how midnight movies in the 70s this is coming off the heels of the colossal and unexpected success of both Pink Flamingos with the queer audience, particularly in San Francisco in 1971, and El Topo in New York, which ran. Yeah, it was like, right, in New York, El Topo ran at midnight every day for a year. I mean, because it was just such a big deal to have that kind of experience.
Yeah,
So-
well, and like that midnight movie culture is more, I mean, like I feel okay saying it's pretty much dead now. Cult film on a certain level just doesn't really exist. And you're the closest I know to a cult filmmaker anymore. And you're making VR film. I don't even know.
Online now. Online is
Online is the new cult film.
I think you kind of can't say that because cult films come out of nowhere. So
They do.
But right
they're-
now, there's just no budget for it. Hollywood's not going to fund a mid-level film that is
now
original
it's an
like
ASMR
that.
slime video on
Right.
Instagram.
Yeah. I feel like
Is there
people
anything I need to know
are
about?
trying.
Oh yeah, you should watch those. They're interesting.
I feel like people are trying to make cult films, which defeats the entire purpose
No.
of that.
Yeah,
you
right.
cannot make one. If
I
you're
think-
intending
yeah.
for something to reach cult status, you're immediately gonna fail.
Like Sharknado.
Yeah,
The Sharknado
which
films are
I
like-
thought that was funny. Would I consider that a cult film? Absolutely
it's
not.
not
You
a
know.
cult film.
Or God, I'm gonna get so much flack
Well-
from literally every single one of our friends. But like Repo the Genetic Opera, they set out to make a cult movie, and it was by some
it's a cult
in, the,
film.
in the Shadowcast community, but they like came and did it on purpose.
Well, it was a cult film that, I mean, like, it was a Frankenstein cult film, which is that I think they understood that there was no way to really make one anymore, so they kind of made one out of parts, and it did bring people.
No pun
I know people. It did bring people into the fold, which I really like about
Yeah.
that film, is that we did
and
get.
people, I mean, people shadowcast that also
Yeah.
to this day.
I know people that was their first Shadowcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Which is
crazy.
so bizarre to me.
I know. It
Well,
makes
like,
me feel
for
old.
some people, Hedwig was their first shadowcast too.
Great
Which I think
really
is like the serious other side of the coin to Rocky. Whereas like Rocky, you know, you get a personal experience from it and all of that. Hedwig like has like meaning and depth.
Hedwig is such a
and-
profoundly like beautifully
Yeah.
made
Yes.
film.
I remember like in theater, like I think it was like the Midsummer Night's Dream cast party in high school and stuff, and watching Hedwig, and it just really captured me. And like the origin of love, like just everybody's sitting there crying
Yeah.
and. Oh man, and I've never seen like a shadow cast for it. I didn't know that they did that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I have friends who had religious experiences at that. What was the name of the one that we did out here?
Rainbow Carnage.
Rainbow Carnage.
Wow.
I have friends who have like transformative, life
Yeah.
altering experiences at that show that have like
Yeah.
forever.
It was
Yeah.
a great cast.
It was a great
On
cast.
a lighter note, Liz and I are great defenders. I think the ultimate Shadowcast experience is shock treatment.
Oh, I love Shock
And the
Treatment.
problem is,
big defender of shock treatment.
well, I think it's actually kind of a difficult movie to watch, but when you see it live, there's
wait,
50 people. It
Wait,
requires
yeah,
50
we have to tell. We got to say. What do we normally say? For those of you who don't know,
Right.
Oh, yes.
Shock Treatment is the official, unofficial.
It's not a sequel, it's an
sequel.
equal.
It's not
It's
a
an
sequel.
equal.
It's not a
It's an equel to the Rocky Horror
but it is
Picture
a
Show.
sequel.
Really?
It's the continuing adventures of Brad and Janet.
Oh.
And it's a direct sequel. It really is.
It's set in a television studio. Everybody
They're back
is
in Denton,
in
Texas.
Denton, and
Or-
in these intertwining reality shows. And keep in mind, this came out in 1981.
And you can perform it with the
Oh.
same cast. There's a mirrored part for everybody in Rocky Horror,
Oh, that's
Frank.
interesting.
except
Yeah,
for
except
Frank.
for
That's the
Frank.
one
Frank's
weakness
not
of the movie is there's no sex in it, and that's probably why it's never been that
Why
popular.
would they-
But it had 4 times
Yeah.
the budget, and they had this amazing
The
costumes and an
music.
enormous
And it's
cast.
the best. I think it's the best
You know,
music Richard O'Brien has
so
ever
good.
put together.
I think it's
Little black dress
It's
and-
glorious,
Yeah, the music.
and it's really fun to see live. But like we haven't done it here in LA in 6 or
been
7
a
years. They
while.
don't.
I
It's
love it
hard to
Fridays.
sell. It will be happening. We're actually anybody here in LA. They're having a convention here in January, and there will be shock treatment at that. So you'll have your chance to see it, and it's really worth it. It is glorious.
Possibly vaguely topical these days too. Yeah, it's got more meaning than
the
I think
power,
the
the
Rocky
power
Horror.
of media and
Bending of reality. yeah.
brainwashing.
That's one thing, is if you watch it, it's ridiculously ahead of its time.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like people don't give it enough credit for that, for kind of predicting this whole obsession with the media and having that kind of control everything. And it's really just watching it thinking, wow, this was made in '81 is just like
It was
a little.
It
It's like,
was a little too
wow.
aware of itself, which I was always one of my
Yeah,
problems.
it's a
Is
little
occasionally I
spooky.
felt like they were holding for applause.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
It
you,
was designed to be audience
some room.
participation, you know,
Right.
which makes it really fun because of all the head switching and the singing along. But I mean, Fox, they killed it. I mean, they pulled all the premieres. It premiered in Fresno. I mean, like they wanted this movie to just go away, which is tragic because it's a really fun film.
It's really
now I'm thinking
good.
of the TV show Fresno, and you ruined the evening entirely. Never mind. We won't even go there.
The apple.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
no.
High five me,
that's-
Jesse.
Yes, that is a
The apple.
bucket list.
What is
show.
the apple?
What is the apple?
Unironically love the apple.
No, that is
I
that is.
love that movie.
Oh, what a fucking film.
Okay, so it's.
Boogaloo
I
is
don't
my
even know where to
personal hero.
start. Oh, you are Mr. Boogaloo.
Thank you. I'm trying.
Give me my bib mark.
I love all
Jeez,
of
how
these
do you even describe this movie? There are these Canadian folk singers who enter a Eurovision type contest. The devil recruits them. They go on this very strange psychedelic journey.
It's a science fiction disco Bible rock musical.
I saw it as a double feature with Head. Would you believe?
But it's the far distant future of 1994 brought to you by
Mm-hmm.
1980. And it somehow looks like 1971
Yeah, like
because
it's
it's
Yeah.
very
very
glam. It's not
Xanadu.
very forward looking.
No.
Oh my God, it's funny though.
Oh,
it was a
it's
big.
so
it was a
good.
German-Israeli tax
Yeah.
shelter.
Yep.
They were. Menachem Golem didn't even show up on set. Nigel from Dancing with the Stars. Nigel, he directed the choreographer. Basically directed the
Okay.
whole movie, and you can see because it's just like more dancers,
Oh,
more boas, more
plus, and they would
sequins, more
like
gay.
they would show up and be like, "So what is our choreography today here in this abandoned airport that is somehow a music studio? Let's
Oh, it's so
roll."
glorious.
It's a really
glorious.
intense. Like if you're in the mood for
good.
cult film, it is a spectacular. And I was
Catherine Mary Martin, Catherine Mary Stewart, who went on to do Last Starfighter and Night of the Comet and so many great movies.
encyclopedia.
Oh, God, no, she went on to be a huge genre star out of that film.
I was also thinking that they actually made a movie about making a cult movie, if I recall, And God Spoke, which was the movie about making a cult film. Do you remember? And
Was
God-
this about canon or?
Oh
About,
no! This was a movie about a film company. It was a document. It was a fake documentary about a film company trying to make a movie adaptation of the Bible, but they have no budget, no and like even like the actress they get to play Eve actually has a full body snake tattoo that they didn't know about when they cast her. So they're trying to figure out how to cover it, and like
This sounds
the
great.
show is a constant disaster, and everything goes horribly wrong. And at the end of the film, after they've spent triple their budget and the movie is terrible, there are people in costume lined up around the New Art Theater waiting to see a Saturday
oh my
night
gosh.
film of it. And that's kind of how the film ends, is with them talking to an audience of people dressed as all the characters from the Bible coming to see this, what was a very earnest film
oh, we gotta make
at our theater.
Speaking of
wanna see
having like no budget and really lofty ideas and stuff like that,
Oh, that's my whole life.
Welcome to digital.
one of the things I really love about like the Shadowcast experience is so we have the movie, we then built upon that into a Shadowcast, and then upon that we have built other like creative type things like pre-shows, which are little like sketches or dances or something we would do before the show, or videos, and all of this sort of derivative of Rocky, but just completely played with. Like Sins of the Flesh has a couple of really amazing pre-shows, such as what if Tim Burton had directed Rocky Horror Picture?
That's fantastic.
What
Yeah.
if Andrew Lloyd Webber had directed the Rocky Horror Picture Show? And it's like, wow, God, we have a lot of time on our hands.
I'm fond of like the crowd-pleasing electrical Main Street Parade. That's a
It's
fun
amazing.
one.
Yeah, we all,
one's fun.
some friends of ours, Joseph and Rye, redid the Main Street Electrical Parade music
That's a great show.
to sound like the Rocky Horror music, and we all throw string Christmas lights on ourselves and march down and like.
I'm sure you guys know the tune. We don't have to sing it for you. I'm sure it's in your ear already. You know.
But yeah, we
Caught in your fishnets.
Is that available anywhere? Or
No,
no,
this is live.
it's all in house.
Cool.
But
I lived
yeah.
in Austin for like a hot minute, and I remember going to I think it was the Alamo Draft
Yeah.
House to see a cast
wow.
there. And I just like picked a random, I was like so out in the paper. I'm ancient, by the way. I'm 500 years old.
look
And
great.
and they were having an Alice in Wonderland night, and
Theme
because
shows.
the boring ass New York cast never did anything like twisty on it. I was like, I felt treated to this extraordinary experience where they had like redone all of the costumes, and that was like,
whoa, so
but,
the
yeah, it was-
mashup.
Oh yeah,
really
people go
Wow.
nuts.
yeah,
For big crazy theme nights.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's so
They weren't
fun.
doing that when I was on cast. That started once I had left
Think
cast.
of some of the good ones we did.
I think some of the most, just to draw attention to the show, some casts do what we call a no-picture show.
Yeah, my
And I
two
think
friends.
we had to do it once up in Northern California when the print broke and the projector wasn't working, and we just had the soundtrack and did the whole movie as a
Oh,
live
wow.
performance with no
That's
no
great.
film at all,
Yeah.
which is basically how we shot the Blu-ray. We were just using the soundtrack.
The audio cues.
Even
Oh, gosh,
it was
that's
the wrong
right.
it was the wrong soundtrack that
was
we
because
figured
they
out
remixed it
5
for the
days into the
Blu-ray.
6-day shoot.
I remember we tried to
Still
do
worth it.
that.
Fun.
Yeah, we tried to do that intentionally where we didn't have the movie playing and we were just gonna do it like from memory. And I remember like less than 5 minutes into the movie, people were going to get refunds. They didn't know what was happening. They didn't understand that this was like a theme night. So we were like, okay, put it back on. I guess this isn't happening.
I find it so charming, the idea of it happening by accident, though.
Yeah.
Something really scrappy and beautiful about it.
It's amazing how narrow people are. Probably the biggest, as far as I know, live performance ever And you were there, and
Yeah.
I was on stage. Was at the Hollywood Bowl in 2005. It's the only time they ever did it there. There was between 11 and 13,000
Yeah.
people. I remember during There's a Light, looking up and seeing thousands of cell phones going back and forth, and toilet paper as far as the eye could see. But all these rich jerk subscribers in the front
Yeah,
seats were like,
in the
"Oh, is this a jazz
offices.
show tonight? Tell them to shut up! Tell them to shut up!" And they had security going out through the audience telling people to stop yelling. And it was just like, good luck, people.
That is peak Rocky right there.
Oh, and they were throwing chocolate at us, like big hard. It was crazy. They were trying to hit us in the head on stage. It was very strange, but glorious. They should do it there again. That was
Yeah,
really
no.
special.
I was gonna be so proud. I was so
There is
good.
toast
I mean, like
out
you were,
there, so there's bread out there.
I don't know if you remember, but man, we were all pretty proud with just the level of accuracy with which we could hit each other with a flying tortilla. Like,
Oh yeah,
like
no, that
15
was
rows back, and you're like fucking Captain America. Just,
funny is until you put out one of your
What is that the callback for?
ohos.
It's just,
That's not a
unique to
callback.
Sins. That no
No.
one else does.
no one
that
else.
to
Was
you.
that, is that only California?
It's only Sins.
I don't know
I
anybody
love
who
LA.
does Sins.
Yeah, because the Doodah Parade also has the tortilla.
Oh,
thing.
did we?
Oh,
man.
Did we?
Okay.
Did
Yeah.
we
I think
explain what
it's
Sins
your
and Flesh
Oh.
was?
It's
So
a cast.
every
It's
cast
just
has a
a-
name, and because that's how we roll. And yeah, the Sins of the Flesh is the LA cast that started in the 1980s.
Rich Weirdos was Orlando.
And
I mean, we could sit here all night and name them.
yeah,
cast,
but
right.
one of the things we do before the show, because we were not bored, I don't know, because we had a lot of pent up energy and also access to
Because you were kids.
cheap tortillas, is that we would have a frisbee fight. We would buy huge packs of corn tortillas,
stacks.
hundreds of them every week, and we would all get up on the stage in the front of the theater and just call targets and take out the tortilla and just
The different casts.
toss them. Oh yeah.
Ah,
Low
before
down,
we
cheap little
do
punks.
shout outs.
Nice. Heavy petting.
Yeah.
Low down,
Well known,
cheap little
yeah.
punks.
Oh man, I'm so pleased, you guys.
Some of my favorite are Help Me Mommy. That's a great cast name. Tiny Fools. That's another one.
That's a good
Yeah.
one.
Erotic Nightmares was my first.
What was the Long Beach cast?
Midnight Insanity.
Midnight
Midnight Sanity. Thank you. Oh man.
Still kicking.
Yeah, the new one that we're doing is going to be Forbidden Fruit, which I think is, that's the one at the Vista.
Is that the new Vista show?
Yes.
I'm very excited.
I love the UC Santa Cruz cast, Slugs and Fishnets.
That's a great
Oh,
show,
that's
by the way.
fantastic.
Yeah.
That's a really
Yeah.
fun show. And there are college
Wild
shows, and there's a
Hunting
lot of,
Things.
in
Yes.
places that can't support a weekly or a monthly, there's often a huge annual show.
Like a Halloween
Around
show.
Halloween.
Like I met some wonderful queer folks from Utah.
somebody
There's
used
a
to be
cast
on
called
what?
there's a
Oh.
cast in Utah called the Latter Day Transvestites.
I've been to that.
Oh yeah, and they're just an annual though. It's just for Halloween, but it's like
Yeah.
it is like the big gay thing in Salt Lake City.
I'm hoping.
Now they have 10 friends. I'm sorry.
No,
I'm like really on a queer eye kick right now.
no. This is why I brought you. I knew you would like really get into this.
I
This
know
is-
there's people asking if there's casts where they are like honestly if you Google what city you're
Yeah.
in, Google will immediately tell you what
It
your
used-
nearest Rocky Horror cast. Almost every state has one.
yeah.
There's a couple that don't.
Terrible
Okay,
Thrills, I
but
remember
so-
them, sure.
A lot of states have multiple casts.
I can't.
too.
I feel really
RKO
bad
Army
because
and,
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, California has like at least five.
I can't remember their name, but they're in Florida. There is an all nude cast.
Oh, stop.
I am
see it,
desperate
yes.
to perform with them.
Okay, I just have to ask:
That's-
at
where's
what
Joseph?
point does transgressive suddenly become? I just really don't want to sew anything. Because that's kind of bullshit.
I think sometimes they
Man.
like paint stuff on and like
They're cheating the system that we didn't even know we had.
Yeah, no, that's gleaming the cube a
I'm
little
like
too hard there.
I so want to
we
perform
gotta
with
go.
them.
Well, the whole idea of screen accuracy is very much a thing now that you either do or you don't do, but it's recent. It really doesn't come.
the same thing as you're either
in terms of historical?
or fairies and elves.
But think about, it's like it is so welcoming of different things. I want to point out the first Janet was a chubby gay Italian guy named Sal Piro who's about as hairy as a Sasquatch. And you see pictures of him in the wig and the whole Janet outfit, and he's a scream. He's actually the president of the fan club, very famous. The first Frank was a woman, a stunning woman, Dory Hartley, right? So like it's always been, it doesn't have to match the gender of the performer, it doesn't have to match the look of the individual character.
Size,
It's
age,
like,
race.
come as you are, which I
Mostly,
think is a
yeah.
cast.
Which is a cast.
It is a cast, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, it's mostly it's you can play Eddie if you can lift somebody. That is kind of your Can you lift a person? Yes.
I-
Hey there.
I like the idea of because people are asking like, oh, can I go near me? If you go, let us know. And let us know what your
Yes.
experience was like. I'm so excited at that possibility of people discovering the show because of this.
Oh yeah, no, I knew you pointed that. I knew that would
What?
make you laugh. It's actually, I mean, like, it's the interesting thing also is that it's surprisingly, even for all the sexiness, it's surprisingly innocent and pretty.
Somebody commented like, I hope STDs aren't rampant, and one, you know, no.
They're being cute, but
Yeah. But also, Rocky is where I learned about safer sex.
That's so
Yeah.
true. A lot of like I got a better sex education out of Rocky
yeah.
Horror than my school ever gave me.
Oh yeah. Like I was a literal virgin the first time I went to the show. I was 18. That didn't last long. But
And you've been sorry.
whatever.
I love you.
I love you.
Oh, someone went to for their 16th birthday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a comment a while ago about someone being concerned about like being forced to do anything, but like as promiscuous as Rocky Horror is, consent is just as
So
big of a
important.
deal. Like, yes, it's very open and encouraged and whatever, but you're never going to be forced to do something you don't want to do. Like, that's pretty big.
If you're uncomfortable and you
for us,
say
yeah.
no, that'll be respected.
Yeah, so I just want to like ease anyone's fears.
Yeah.
You're not going to be
Join us.
Yeah.
Even the Virgin Sacrifice.
magical.
The Virgin Sacrifice has 2 tiers, and there's one tier which is just everyone just
Yeah.
sort of does a thing that's
Yeah, and
small.
then maybe like 6 people
Voluntary.
who volunteer get
And the
picked,
6 people
yeah.
who go up are definitely like, if you're like no, or oftentimes
No one's going to physically drag you to do it. Like, yeah.
Even as a cast member, in mine, you had to train for one of the parts, even if you were just a Transylvanian, or if I was Transylvanian in lighting, but I had to learn a part. And I love wearing clothes. It is one of my favorite things. I look amazing with clothes
Very
on.
good at it.
Oh, thank you.
You don't have to do
so-
Jesse. It's okay.
So
we need people to drive. Thank you.
So I told them that. They're like, "Oh, that's perfect. You can be the criminologist or you can be Eddie." I'm like, "I'll train for Eddie because those are the only 2 that do not end up in fishnets at the end."
That's true.
They're the
Oh my
only
god,
2.
I love my fishnet, especially with like super hairy. I have like hobbit legs, so like putting on fishnets. I get them going, and I can static shock people. It's amazing.
It's so funny because like now existing with the hipster show,
yeah.
I'm so used to the Eddie Dr. Scott is a double role.
Same person.
Yeah, and that
That's
was
how it was in the stage
which
show.
they struck for the movie. Like, and apparently Meatloaf was like mad about it that he didn't get to be Dr. Scott because that was one of his favorite parts of doing the show. But you know, I think it's more because the stage show is so goofy. It wouldn't really translate in film. It'd be
I'd
like,
to
why
point
is
out,
he
I've
wearing a
never-
mustache?
Yeah.
I've never seen it done this way, and I'd love to do it just because, you know, the criminologist is my avatar. I love him. He's only on screen for 7
he's-
minutes, but he is the puppet master. He tells the story. He bookends the film.
He's obviously based on you as well, which is so.
Well, I was just telling Taliesin, a lot of down to the cigarette holder is a joke about Charles Gray as Blofeld in Diamonds Are Forever. They were making fun of his fabulously queenie supervillain in Diamonds Are Forever. But the thing about the original production, I don't know how they did this. The criminologist and Dr. Scott were the same actor. Now, no one does that anymore. But Jonathan Adams was both characters. Holy so the criminologist kind of goes into the show and then comes back out of it to bookend it. Interesting, right?
That's sort of cool.
You know,
wouldn't even
I would
know how
love
to
to
do
do
that.
that. You know.
I'm gonna make Coy do it.
Oh, make Coy. The chat loves Coy. We would love to watch Coy do that.
Coy is our criminologist, although like we just call him our fanboy narrator.
He is the
'Cause
world's
we just have
fanboy.
him play himself. We gave him a Rocky Horror T-shirt.
so
we made
good.
instead of the criminologist book, we made him a giant comic.
I know we can't totally show it off, but you brought a toy to show really
Oh
quickly.
yeah, no. If you want to, I don't know. Everybody brought some stuff for show and tell. I'll kick it off. This, if you have the Blu-ray, this is all over it. I reconstructed his book from the movie, and I've been told which things I can and can't show. So I'll show you a few of them.
Things that are
So it's like, it seemed a fairly ordinary night when Brad and Majors and Janet Weiss, 2 young, ordinary, healthy kids. So there's a lot of these pictures here. I want to show you another one I made here. I had to reconstruct the entire map shown in the movie. which this was my project. This was like 15 pages photoshopped together. It's Southern Ohio. It's actually the area shown in the movie. Yes. There's I'm gonna show some other great ones. I love. There's at the beginning of Eddie's Teddy. There's this picture of Meatloaf
There we go.
as Whistler's mother.
Oh, is it actually Meatloaf?
Yeah.
That's Meatloaf in drag.
That's
And when I went and I actually saw this painting at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, and I just burst out laughing like a lunatic. But he's also
the
a
thorn in
low-down,
his
cheap
mother's
little
side.
punk, you know.
Yes.
And we did a really special benefit show in 2010 at the Wiltern. I don't know if any of you guys were there, but I got to share the role of the criminologist, alternating scenes with Jack Nicholson and Danny DeVito, which was awesome. And so Jack Nicholson's lines are in here, which is really funny because he started his monologue with the book upside down and couldn't find his lines, and it got really awkward. And people started. And he was heavily tranquilized, which he insisted on. He said in interviews, he's like, "Well, I'll do it, but if Lou has to get me lots of drugs." And then a cigarette fell. It was glorious. And backstage right before we're about to come on for the end of the show, Jack is standing there and he looks at everybody and says, "Nobody dance with me. I get dizzy real easy." And it was special. He went to the wrong side of the stage. At one moment, I managed to get him away from his handlers and get a selfie with him, looking very confused. But that was a really special show. No, because Tim Curry came up after the show. Tim hadn't done an appearance in 20 years. It's 1990.
Yeah.
It's before his stroke, is when he was still, and he came up like Oscar Wilde in the Wiltern, smoking a cigarette. Took the roaring applause, and the minute they started the time warp, he was off the stage. And poor Barry Bostwick is stuck on stage. He doesn't know how to do the time warp. He didn't have to do it in the movie. He has to stand there and look stupid. And his wife told him, "He's like, oh, you look terrible. You really don't know what you're doing." We had that great picture of Tim backstage with our Rocky from the night. They got a picture of Tim with one of our Rocky performers, and the Rocky's looking very surprised because Tim has his finger in the gold shorts a little deeper than you might imagine. It was a very special moment. Tim loved that, and our Rocky was a sport. We'll say that. You know?
Oh man! Oh God, Rocky.
There's like a lot of great pictures. That was a really special
fun night.
show.
I good gamed one of the celebrity guests.
You were a Betty, weren't you?
Nope, I was a Transylvania.
You were Transylvania.
Yep.
That's right, yep.
You know who was really spectacular? Evan Rachel Wood played Magenta,
Oh, she's
and
glorious.
she was the sweetest. She came and like hung out backstage with us, and like genuinely wanted to know about like the shadow cast and everything. She was such a doll.
Well, because like I think it might have been maybe only a month and a half ago, Joseph came with a group of people, and he said, "Hey, one of my friends wants to like talk to someone on cast." And I went over and I'm like, "Sure, I'll like talk." People interview us for like college magazines, things like that. So we go over and he introduces me to this girl. I didn't catch her name. It's loud in there. I don't know. She just asks me about Rocky, and she's kind of like not writing anything down. Like usually they're like writing something down with like the interview, and wasn't really asking like interview questions. She was just like asking about Rocky. We talked for about 10 to 15 minutes. And I was like, okay, that was like a little weird. And I go back to the lobby and like they're like, Evan Rachel Wood's in there. And I was like, oh, cool. I don't really know like who that is. Like I've heard that name. I don't know like who that is. And they're like, yeah, it's that one in the back with Joseph. And I was like,
Of course.
oh,
Cool.
wow. Well then.
It's always weird when people show up at the theater.
She's ungodly attractive though. Like she came just with her hair up and like glasses, like wasn't really trying. And I was like, wow, this person has blessed genetics. Like I don't know how I didn't figure out that of course she's someone famous. Like nobody looks that good.
No, it's very much like it's definitely that moment where you're like, this was a car that was assembled by hand.
Yeah,
Oh Lord.
it was kind of devastating to find out that she was who she was, because I was like, man, there goes my chances, you know? I was like,
Were you there the night Susan Sarandon and Natalie Portman came
That
to
was
Sins?
before my time. That was
No,
well
and
before my
Bernie
time.
Bernie made a really hard sell with Natalie Portman. He couldn't, but Susan hung out with some people in the alley and did Rocky Horror things. You know, it was.
Susan was the time I recall that.
We've gotten some like pretty crazy celebrities. Harrison Ford showed up one night.
This is all on the internet, by the way, just so you guys know. We're not like breaking anything.
yeah, there's pictures.
Yeah, that ends up there.
I took Ronda Rousey's virginity. I marked her all up.
All right.
That was a good one.
Oh, that's awesome.
That was a good one, yeah.
I don't know who that is.
She's amazing. She's
But no, it's. I mean, like.
It's really great. It's like the great equalizer. These cult experiences. Everybody has to go through it.
Gotta do it once.
I'll tell you the saddest story. Tim Curry went once, in like 78, 79 to the show in
back
New
the
York.
lawless days.
And he tried, and he snuck in. He went because he was friends with Dory Hartley, the first Shadowcaster of Frank, and he tried to sneak into the I think the balcony or the back of the theater, but people spotted him. It collected a crowd, and the manager came up to him and said, "Who the hell are you? Get out of here!" And they threw him out, thinking that he was a fake Tim Curry. And after they had thrown Tim Curry out of the theater, this is a public documented story. Tim Curry pulls out his passport and says, "I'm never coming back here again." And it was just like, why did you blow it? This was like our chance to show him that we're not all horrible people, that we actually love him. And
The cast has mostly come around at this point, so
yeah,
mostly.
it's
little
so funny.
handful
Like,
of 'em.
were you there at the Cine Family R.I.P. The Cine Family when
Yeah.
Tim?
Yes.
And so they hosted a special screening. They said no costumes, no shoutbacks. It
Yeah.
sold out before it was announced. I couldn't be there, but Tim was there. It was after his
he-
stroke, and he was in a
and
wheelchair,
did
and he
a
spoke to the
Q&A.
audience.
It was
It was sad.
It was
right?
hard. It was hard because you could tell that like he's still there,
Oh,
Yeah.
and his sense of humor and his spirit and everything is definitely going strong. But you know he had some physical limitations, which you know was tough as somebody you idolized for years and years to see them hurt, injured.
My favorite moment, and I think he's come around. Like for the longest
Yeah.
time, he wouldn't do signings, he wouldn't take
wouldn't.
pictures.
He
Now
would
he's
touch
doing the
Rocky.
convention racket. You know,
Yeah.
he's doing the circuit. But I heard from Bill that during that screening, he said, "How many of you people out there are Rocky Horror people? How many of you do Rocky Horror?" A lot of the audience raised their hands. I think you should stop. And it's like, I mean, mad love, but
love that.
Yeah.
It's such a, like what's so amazing about that human being is like I feel very much like that is a universally sexy human. It sort of doesn't matter your orientation or your anything.
No, we're-
just like that's a sexy
There's a short list of people who basically we can beam images of them out into space, and there will be
Yeah.
a silicon-based life form with 3 heads and
That's like,
15
I'm
eyes.
into
It's
that.
like I want to mate with that. I
Yeah.
don't know what to tell you.
well, and there's so much like power
Yeah.
and gravitas.
he
and
has
there's, like,
a complicated feeling about the role because
Sure.
at one hand it created him, and then it also limited anything he could do in the future, and it also destroyed his knees because he did it on stage so much. Like he has, you know, it really
6-inch
those
heels.
those heels alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Are those they? This
Are
is like
those the heels?
Close. They suck. These heels I only wear if I have to, so I only started wearing these knowing I had to sit down today. They have seen some things. This is my probably second or third pair
Yeah,
I've gone
we're
through.
attempting a shot. There we go.
Sorry.
Ah.
They have definitely almost caused injuries, but not quite. But I know people who have. Like I think Wiley actually. There was one time he like broke his ankle during floor show. He doesn't play Frank, but you still are wearing heels.
We try to get.
I'm pretty sure he like
Chat
broke
knows
his
Wiley.
ankle or broke a foot part and continued
Something.
the show.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
But yeah, they're kind of a safety hazard.
For Congo.
You know what actually taught me to walk in heels is marching band. So if you walk heel toe,
Wow,
you're
man!
real stiff.
I was gonna say like the line between band and Rocky Horror is like this.
Oh yeah, band kids, theater kids.
It's basically performing without having to know how to act. So
Yeah, I can't act or sing.
I can't act, I can't sing, but man, I'll march with a flute, yo. Like
Quote of the night.
I want to throw a shout out to a dear friend. I think you met him too. Fester was a great. He did a phenomenal Divine from Pink Flamingos. We met at AC08 Atlantic City Convention. Fantastic Eddie, big gay bear, just a wonderful guy, amazing human being, and he had heart problems, and we knew this, and he'd had to stop doing Rocky, but he went back, and did Eddie. And like Eddie, Eddie's like Godzilla. He comes and he breathes and lives in rock and roll, and then he dies. And Fester did it. He had an amazing scene, and he went in the alley and he had a heart attack and dropped dead.
Oh my god!
And it's just like, on the one hand, is absolutely devastating, but it's just like, if you know, that's
what a
how.
way to go.
What a way to go! You know, it's
One,
like.
and if you are somebody who's used to doing cast, like it's hard. Quitting was not easy.
No.
Quitting was not easy.
I quit.
No.
You're still. I know you quit like a.
2 years ago. I'm completely entrenched.
They call it a cult for a reason. Once you're recruited, once you're in, it's like it's your life.
Oh, man.
Back
In
when I used
some
to
way or
do
another.
pre-show down in Orange County, I would scream at the audiences like, "I've wasted my life. Now it's your turn." Just because
Yep.
it's, once is too many, and 1,000 times is never enough.
No, we retired our show in 2016.
You keep telling me
and then,
that.
Look
Yeah.
at me now.
Yeah.
Bringing it
Do you have
back.
any upcoming dates?
Yeah.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do.
October. I mean, it's October, but
So like a Halloween show?
yeah, it's the 26th. There's 4 dates.
I'm so
glorious.
excited.
So around Halloween.
Yeah.
And the name
yeah.
of your cast again?
We are the Rocky Horror Hipster Show.
Hipster Show.
And it's
Yeah, it's
Check
a
it out,
different
folks.
vibe. I highly recommend it though. It's a wonderfully fun different
This
vibe.
clip's looking amazing.
We gotta do like a field trip out there.
It's like an actual like tight performance. Like what is that even about?
it's. I mean,
It's
like.
right the way that.
Oh no, it is. We keep it tight, but like our drummer, 1 year after the show, we were like, "Where's Spike?" And somebody found him in the bushes, like a couple blocks away.
That's a good show
yeah,
right
yeah,
there.
Yeah.
Was
yeah.
he hiding from the press?
No, he was just having a time.
Sometimes you
having a
just need to commune with
rocky
nature.
time. Yeah, and I mean, like, you guys should come down. You guys can take. I have the honored task of glittering Jeff every night, and I would be happy to like ceremoniously pass the torch to somebody else.
I'm in.
Wow. Yeah, that's.
So in.
That sounds terrible.
It sounds like a trap. You're
it
not
is.
gonna get
I
the
know,
glitter off
I
of you.
know.
You're already
What's the
covered enough
catch?
as
Yeah,
is.
Erica,
That's the other
I have a
thing.
glitter story in your honor. So the original Rocky Horror production, if you can imagine, it was in a 50-seat theater, in an upstairs theater, 50 seats with one microphone hanging from the ceiling that everybody had to
gosh.
share. It was so punk rock. And in the early days, it was the hottest thing. You couldn't get a ticket. Everybody was there. Vincent Price and all these stars. The night Mick Jagger came, there was an incident, and they had to cancel the show because glitter back then was made from ground pieces of glass.
Yeah.
What?
And yeah.
Yep.
And with quick changes, the guy who played Rocky had some glitter in his shorts. Oh. And it swelled up to the show, and he was like, "I'm gonna go on, I'm gonna do it." And Pat Quinn's like, "I'll do the damn role. We're gonna perform for Mick Jagger." And so Mick Jagger missed the show because of an incident with glass.
R.I.P. that Rocky's junk.
Yeah. No.
If you
Wow.
Glitter.
Rainer
Not even
Verdon,
once.
the legend.
stolen from glitter, please seek medical attention after 3 hours.
I was gonna say, considering I would like to point out that I'm very happy.
I'm being told that petting the jacket is not good for sound.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
So I'm only going to do it when we're on camera.
I love how funny that we
you
can
know,
have the
that is
sex,
the
drugs,
old
and rock and
glitter.
roll, but no glitter.
That is the old glitter. The new glitter is friendlier and
like
can
edible
be
glitter.
ingested.
Edible glitter.
And I don't want to hear anybody complaining about glitter ever again.
the jacket real quick.
What?
I am.
I'm jealous. I've been like,
Yeah, it's
Oh,
very
man.
surprising.
it's been like
I mean, like, and like anybody
been
who
the
knows me
avatar
well
for
knows
chat.
that like I am all about mermaid sequins are like my
know,
fucking life.
I know, right?
And like I walked in and was
Here.
like, and it was just like it was ugly how quickly I
God.
crawled into this jacket and started hissing at the shop proprietor.
Oh, it was so great. She's like, "Oh, we've been using that as a therapy jacket." I was like, "Well, it's mine
we got it
now."
like 3 weeks ago, but we just put it out today because we've just been petting it in the back, and I'm like, mine. Thank you, Junk for Joy.
Oh, I love that place.
I know they were like you put up a little.
Yeah, I tweeted about it, and then she's like, "Oh, what do you people do?"
And we were like, as we're explaining, a girl comes from the back.
Comes
going
running
like,
from the back, and is
What
like,
happened to our
"What
Twitter
happened to our
feed?
Twitter
This was
account?"
people tweeting at us. Yeah.
Oh,
It made me laugh.
well, I love like anytime I go to like a hardware store or the craft store or something, they're like, "Oh, what are you making?" I'm like, burlesque props, and I'm just like loading up the
There was
freaking.
That's another like Venn diagram too.
Oh, yeah.
The burlesque scene and
yeah.
the
What-
geek burlesque scene.
Oh, I
in
was just gonna
Rocky,
say
yeah.
one of my favorite emergency prop shopping experiences was buying light bulbs and unlubricated condoms for mic packs.
Sure.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
I swear.
no, this is how you do it.
Yeah. And then I was a little younger, different time, and I bought regular condoms also, and I went up to the counter and dumped it all there, and I was like, "This is for my show. This is for me." And the clerk was like, "Didn't need to know."
I'm gonna need two. This is getting written off, and this I'm paying for. This
Right.
is like, yeah.
I'll write it on the receipt. Thank you, writing.
Right, check on the prophylactics and light bulbs here. Jeez. I'd love to. Does anybody have stories about road shows? Because that's always fun when you get out of the theater and you take Rocky out into the world.
You know, we for several years in a row did an event called Street Food Cinema. Yeah, which is so fun. It's like a movie in a park or a location, and the food trucks come out. And it's really funny because it's like there's kids there. There's sort of a general just audience who is just out for a day in the park
They
to
were
see
not
a movie.
prepared for you.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Taking, and it's just fun to take
Can
stuff
I
off site.
can I mention the Doodah Parade?
The one in Pasadena? I
Doing-
grew up with that.
Doing the Rocky Horror Casts used to do a float in the Doodah Parade. Do we still do the Doodah Parade?
No, I
An
don't.
actual float? Or
Until recently,
Well, we would do like a
did
car.
Pride. We did Pride for several years
Well,
running.
yeah.
Of course.
I mean, like, yeah.
yeah.
We already
San
have the
Francisco
outfits.
Pride was unbelievable. Barely Legal. The year I went up with them, they actually had a full a float drawn with the truck with
Amazing.
loudspeakers, and we did about 4 or 5 scenes down Market Street in front of hundreds of thousands of people, and it's just like, yes, stick it to my vein. Give me more of the eyeliner and the pretty people.
I got fired from volunteer ushering at the Broadway Rocky Horror. I'm like trying to think of like what are my weird stories. And I'm like, oh, that was a good one because I wore a shirt with something inappropriate written on it, which was
What
just,
could be inappropriate
It
for
said
Rocky Horror?
it said I fucked your girlfriend on it, and and I was just directing nice theater patrons to the bathrooms, and then they talked to me and they're like, yeah, you're gonna have to not come back. And I was like, shit, the only person I've met in this cast is Luke Perry.
Them to not come back. They shouldn't be there.
This does not compute.
It was a
Yeah,
different
no,
time.
Absolutely
It's also
not.
a different thing, like the Broadway
Oh, I
scene
see.
is for
Yeah.
like, tourists.
Yeah, but don't put on Rocky Horror if you're not putting on Rocky Horror.
This is how I feel.
We used to be edgy by wearing edgy shirts. That was a thing that we would do. I have some shirts I wouldn't be caught dead in anymore. Although that is a good shirt. I'm actually a big fan of that shirt.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
What shirts are you hiding in your closet?
Oh God, no! I'm trying to think of what even I would be willing to like discuss. Now that I think about it, some of them are just awful. God, I have to think about it.
I've got 2 road
Oh,
shows.
I got a good one, though.
I got
Yeah.
2 road shows I want to mention briefly. One was a glorious mistake. We were invited to Marine World USA to do Halloween Horror Nights.
Marine World again.
Yeah, we have
No, so it was Marine World USA. There's horror in the title. It's Halloween. Let's bring in a Rocky Horror Cast. So we get out there in their theater in Vallejo, and we look and we're like, oh, we're about to do Time Warp Sweet Transvestite. It's an audience full of little kids.
Oh no!
Very little kids.
Oh yeah.
And the minute the cape came off, it was just like, honey, we're leaving. And it was like they were dragging kids out of the theater. It was like, but we got invited back the next year. Go figure.
No, like the idea of doing Halloween themed shows at like Marineland and like said like they've been doing this.
Yeah.
It's so insane, but like once a year there's like suddenly they're starting to cast for pirates, ghost pirates, and you're like, oh no, here we go again for this idea.
Speaking of Venn diagrams,
Yeah.
besides burlesque, dancing, goth clubs, the fetish scene.
Yeah.
Well, the class in Northern California has, I think, an annual show at a dance club called Bondage a Go-Go, where they do they do the full the edit. They do like a 70-minute version condensed, no picture, full performance, and you can look up in the balcony and see interesting things happening while you're doing the full show. It's like it's an interesting
I
experience.
know RKO Army does a fetish show every year.
A fetish like pre-show or a fetish
No,
scene
like a
show?
fetish show, with that scene.
Give a shout out to those people because not only do
love
they
them.
throw a great show, they also are professional rave producers. I mean,
Yeah.
so like they, in terms of production quality and throwing conventions, you know, you find yourself in Providence, Rhode Island, you gotta go to
I went
Rocky
for
Horror.
I went for Pride last year in
wow.
Providence, Rhode Island, and it was the best. It was so much fun. They do their parade at night, which is excellent because then you're not sweating the whole time.
Oh, that's
right?
Also dark though?
Right? It's lit. It's lit.
That's what yellow wire's for.
Bam.
It's lit, y'all.
Oh my
I do
god.
have to give them a little
I
bit of
missed
love though
Pride this
because
year.
just you know name drop shamelessly for a moment. Barry Bostwick and I have become friends because we both did the convention, and I've also done 2 movies with Barry.
Yep.
I was Werewolf Hitler to him as FDR American Badass. And he and I also co-starred in a movie called Helen Keller versus Nightwolves. And RKO actually showed that. They showed that
Yes.
as a double feature with
of
Rocky,
these
which
films are
meant a lot to me.
Yes.
Which we also premiered at the 40th anniversary.
Yeah. It's a lot, but it's great.
You can watch the trailer. It's like it's
Well,
it's
and
good.
like as we're sort of like name dropping these casts and talking about our friends, like because of Rocky Horror, I have good close friends all over the country. Like it's amazing.
That's my joke is I have good close friends all over the country, despite myself, which is always my like.
I call
somehow.
I call it the pervert's passport. You know, it's just like you
Yeah.
can instantly meet all the wrong people wherever you go. You know, it opens all the doors
All
in
the
the wrong
worst
ones.
doors. All the doors in the all that third door by the 2 other bathrooms, and you're like, what's going on in there, guys?
Narnia.
Hey Narnia. Oh, what are you doing, that lion? Oh no.
It's really neat though. Like if you're ever traveling somewhere, it's like, okay, I'm going to the
Yeah.
city I've never been to. I don't know anyone. We're just going to visit or something. You can go Google like, well, is there a Rocky Horror
That's-
Cast? Or
I
there's
did
like
it-
Facebook groups we have where it's like, hey, does anyone know of a show
I did a
happening?
year in
And you
Dallas,
go
Fort
there,
Worth.
it's like, yeah, it's like these are
Shadowcast.
people you've known on Facebook
Yeah.
forever, and it's like you know people, which is really neat. And the Rocky community is also a really like cool one in where like if you were going to another place out of town and like people will offer like to let you stay with them, like things like
Yeah.
that. Like it's all
Stay
very
with us,
close
perform
knit.
with us.
Yeah, they're like come like perform with our cast.
I
we
love
have like
guest
a
performers.
place you can crash, which is like just super neat having those connections.
There's a bunch of people I wanted on this show tonight. I mean, like I spent the shout out, but like there were a bunch of people that we couldn't get because there's like 5 burlesque events happening
Yeah,
in the city
again,
of Los
there's,
Angeles
like,
right now.
Nerd burlesque and
Is-
Rocky Horror is like such a tight Venn diagram.
But I got you.
Yes.
You got the dregs of the rest of us.
No, well,
Sorry.
well, no, I didn't want to go like.
I tried to get so many other people than you guys.
Oh, well, I wanted 4 more. I was shooting for 4 more. Actually, weirdly enough, I didn't have to do a second round of emails this time. Just
I
saying.
know,
Just
which is
saying.
unusual.
But I wanted someone to talk a little bit about because the burlesque overlap is intense.
It's pretty big.
I needed a Trixie to talk about that.
Yeah, so I perform the role of Trixie, which isn't an actual character in the movie, but during the beginning of the movie, the lip sing science fiction double feature, and traditionally it was an usherette who would come out and sing.
Cigarette Girl or-
Cigarette Girl, and it evolved into this sort of like burlesque stripping thing in a lot of areas. Not everybody does it. It's not like a requirement, but I think it's super fun. So at some point, a bunch of us, guys and gals and everyone in the Rocky scene kind of like turned and looked at each other, and we were like, burlesque, let's do that. And our friend Blanche Bourgeois started a troupe that's made up of basically 99% Rocky Horror performers. We're the Hollywood Jane Review. And yeah, there's a lot of similarities. People talk about the burlesque scene very similarly to Rocky Horror, where you can go to a new city and find a burlesque show and kind of find your people. You have this community of people throughout the country, throughout the world. There's a lot of similar mentalities just because of the sexually charged nature of it. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it's sort of like been the progression of a creative outlet because, like, let me tell you, dancing and stripping to the same 4.5-minute song that is not danceable at all every single week is fun and challenging, and I got to be so creative. I mean, I literally have a walk-in closet full of costumes.
It is mighty.
It's ridiculous. But yeah, doing burlesque and being able to, use new music, and just expand the creativity and the ideas and all of that was a really
Can I
cool thing.
grab a couple of these things and
Yeah.
give you some stuff to show up?
Grab whatever you want.
All right. Hey now.
Consent.
Go on.
Yes.
I'm aware.
Yes. Your guys' burlesque troupe, and I'm wondering if you guys got this from Rocky Horror. Old school burlesque is like you have pretty girls dancing and you have a comedy show. Your troupe is my favorite because it's sexy, but the comedy comes from the dancing. Like, it's
There's
hilarious
so
and just
many-
off the
There's
wall
so many different
sometimes.
styles
It's
of
so
burlesque.
extra.
There's classic burlesque, which you think of like gowns, the big feather fans. There's like neoclassical, where you're doing some of that stuff, but like maybe more modern music and costuming. There's nerdlesque, which I love. Like, I mean, I have a
Was it Jurassic Park this week?
we did a
Jurassic Park.
Jurassic Park burlesque show. I play the mosquito who is trapped in amber. I built an
that's
amber
fabulous.
pod and I dance my way out of it. I have wings. It's a whole thing.
Bringing you some
God,
things
okay.
to show off.
So
Great.
so back in January, RKO Army, the Providence cast that we mentioned, threw a convention essentially on a cruise ship, and my buddy Jackson and I were like, man, you know what'd be great? We're on a boat, we should dress like mermaids, but the Rocky Horror characters, and this was just like this thing that we thought of. They were like, this would be fun. So I put like way too much effort and time and money
You
into
always
this.
do.
I
It's
do.
so
I'm
great.
so
Amazing.
extra. I'm so extra. So in the movie, the criminologist has at the very end a light up globe. So I made myself a seashell bra that is a globe and it lights up, but the batteries are missing somewhere.
Gotta get better about that.
So yeah, I got my light up globe bra. The skirt is the
There.
ascot that the criminologist wears.
So beautiful.
And then I made yeah, my friend Christine helped me construct the skirt, and then I put all the doodads on, and then I made myself a fabulous mermaid tiara that has the cigarette holders. So
Awesome.
I mean, like literally, like I've worn this once.
That's really
this is
exciting.
a one-time thing, and I was like, well, I'm fucking bringing it tonight.
You have a problem. Thank
I'm
you.
a serious.
Thank you for not bringing the Jungle Cruise boat. So
Oh yeah, I do a Disney Jungle Cruise burlesque act, and my partner Chris constructed me a boat that wheels around that I dance around.
yeah.
There's a hidden Mickey in the costume.
Who does? Oh God.
I just like the creativity and craftsmanship for burlesque costumes.
Yeah.
Just it is astonishing
And
to me.
I wouldn't have that that well to draw on if it wasn't for Rocky and like I mentioned earlier, all of these other like weird derivative creative things we do. So
So somebody in chat, Jexers is talking about body confidence issues, and this isn't. I actually want to differentiate something between cosplay and theater costume, which is that
Costuming.
costuming versus cosplay.
Charles Gray area.
It. Bless you. Wow, that was a good joke that like 7 people got. Getting into a costume on stage is a different emotional experience than putting on a costume and going to a convention. There's a weird wall of safety I find.
There is.
I mean, I know you cosplay also. I mean, like,
to a degree,
yeah.
degree,
I mean,
yeah.
like, yeah, we've been photographed together, Lord.
My Carmen
In
Sandiego.
your Carmen Sandiego.
Oh my god, I remember that.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I remember.
It's also a burlesque act now.
Of course it is.
It's so good.
That was the first night I met you. Oh. So we're doing Carmen Sandiego.
Oh man, which was great because I was like, oh man, table full of cute gay girls. I'm gonna do burlesque forever.
Hey.
Much like the God, look at all the. That was my whole experience with Rocky. Was look at all these pretty people, and they're just everybody. We're all making out. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. Thank God I didn't, but you know.
Dude,
It comes,
it's
I had to tag out eventually.
It's funny, like you should, because like I told you that group that I first, like met and everything. And I was like, oh, I understand it's something about them. So we had like a Rocky Horror Picture Show, like the lips and Frankenfurter on it in like hanging up in our wall and everything until like sort of just recently and everything. So I don't know. It's weird how I don't know. Is this getting old? Is this getting old?
It's.
Or is it just we found different community?
I think that there's an inevitable youth to it. I think that it
I feel like
requires
there's so much discovery involved in it.
There is, and I think that there's. I will say that there are tiers. And
Yeah.
please correct me if it's changed or if it's different now, because it's been a while for me. But I definitely felt that I went through the, like, I'm gonna say as a teenager, my virgin sacrifice back in the '90s, early '90s, was I was put on stage on my knees. They filled my. This is something they don't do anymore. Is they fill my mouth with whipped cream, put a cherry on top, and a very attractive creature came over and removed it with their mouth. And especially for my age at that time, that was a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm still friends with that person it's like decades later. We're still close, and we've still had we don't even live in the same state anymore, but I know where they are, and I know what they're doing.
That's cool.
And I still know the same people I knew at 15 years old because we had this informative experience. And then once we started doing cast, we started wrangling up. Like, I remember you kind of coming in as one of that new generation of intense fuck ups that we love so much, and bouncing off the walls and, making out with everything that moves and
That's
some
not
yeah.
me.
Well, that was not you.
That was
that group.
definitely me.
I know. Well, I mean,
Right. No, people who are trying to find their place. Definitely. And it kind of does happen in waves. And I think there's it skews young, and then there's sort of that mid 20s to mid 30s, figured their shit out, still having a good time, and then
kind of being a role model.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's a few older members.
Well, look at how, because Rocky Horror and the Renaissance Fair.
That's
started out
another-
as
another-
and how that
Definitely.
they do not have that revolving youth anymore, whereas Rocky Horror does. Renaissance Fair has completely changed
Yes.
because it's very much the old guard, and they've gotten very stingy, and they've sucked a lot of the fun out of it that used to be in there.
It's not
Not
it's
as
not
much
repopulating.
No.
Makeouts.
That is true.
I kind of see the same thing with Rocky. Instead of a just general progression of people getting older and new people joining, and it kind of just keeps even, there was kind of a break, I feel like, in that, or at least
Recently,
with our
definitely.
cast. I might be one of the only people that's been going for this kind of I've been going for a while, but I'm not new. There's not a lot of other people that have been going for around 7 years. It's either everyone's been doing it
Forever.
15 years, or everyone's been doing it 1 or 2 years. So I personally
Yeah.
have felt like I'm kind of in a weird position, and the way I feel about things right now has definitely shifted, and it kind of is part of what you were saying is have I grown out of this, or what's happening? And it's kind of hard to tell. It's am I growing out of it, or is it just younger kids and it's still the same to me? And I think maybe Rocky has made me feel so comfortable with myself that when I go to Rocky, it's a different feeling. Maybe I'm not getting that out of it still, but I still love it as a performance outlet, and it's still my community. That's still my family. But yeah, I it's kind of a weird thing to grow older in that community. There's so many shifts that happen, and I feel like a lot of the people with the burlesque thing, it's almost people when they start to not retire from Rocky, because nobody retires from Rocky, but I feel like burlesque ends up in the timeline of things ends up being people's next step.
Yeah.
That's what I've realized is a lot of the people that do burlesque are the people who did Rocky for 15 years first.
Yeah.
I also I'm in this weird bizarro position now where when I first was coming around and I was 19-year-old little baby, and I got scooped up by the people that were in their late 20s, early 30s, and they really took care of me and mentored me. And now all I can hope for is that with some of the newer kids that I can be there for them and impart some kind of fucking wisdom.
I feel you.
Like the little bit of wisdom that I've earned, if I can be there for these kids who are just growing and maturing like anyone would at their age, that's really important to me, because the next generation of Rocky kids are great.
I stopped going the night I discovered that I lost my patience with an audience member in a way that was different than my normal.
Get
It
off
was
my lawn.
It was almost a bit of I can't even find some compassion for you in the moment. I'm just irritated. I don't want to be that guy, and I shouldn't be here, and I'm just like, I got to walk away. But it was at the same time, it wasn't negative though. It was very much this place is fine.
yeah,
I'm
right.
good. I'm gonna be back in like 6 months, and I'm gonna see a show, and like
Yeah.
it's gonna be great. But like I'm gonna start devoting energy elsewhere.
Right.
I mean, the show made. I mean, like we've all interacted differently in
You
wonderful
can
ways.
take the boy out of Rocky. But it's like, but you can't take Rocky out of the boy. It's like the thing. It's just like, and I think it's like almost an acting thing. It's like sense memory.
Right.
It's like I call it. I'm long retired, but I still go back. I call it a superannuated adolescence, right? Because there's something that keeps us coming back. Because all of a sudden we can feel 14 or 18 again. We can feel that innocence and that horniness and that insouciance. It's all there. And
There's definitely a bit of Peter Panning.
Yeah.
I wonder how
Patricia
much how necessary it is depending on what culture is going on surrounding it, like different.
It's
eras.
always. It is always an island. I think we actually.
So
I know.
yeah, this is a good time of saying like, yeah, I can't wait to go back and see what it's like and actually be a dirty virgin. Yes.
It's gonna
Great.
happen.
And so why don't you all once again introduce
Yeah,
yourselves
let's-
and where people can find you?
Yeah.
Pass the talking paper.
I am Maggie Levin. My show is called The Rocky Horror Hipster Show. You can follow me for filmmaking adventures and eventually Rocky rehearsals this fall. I am Maggie Levin on Instagram and Twitter.
And where can they see your like video stuff? By the way.
I'm on Vimeo, but I put everything on Instagram these days.
Good, good, good.
good.
Yeah, Instagram has a TV function now.
Yeah.
10 minute
IGTV.
video.
Well, I can't get the notifications to go away.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's how you do it in Rocky Horror. I'm Marley Blackwell. On Instagram, I'm _exquisite.corpse_. Without the underscores, it was taken. So I'm almost always at the New Art Theater with Sins of the Flesh. I will be playing either Frank or Eddie, and other assorted Rocky casts. That's where I am. That's me.
I'm Lana. I am on the Instagrams as Lana_Entendre, which is my burlesque name. And on the Facebooks, similarly, I can be found far too often with Sins of the Flesh or with the Hollywood Jane Review here in LA.
Nice.
Do you want to give me
back.
a twirl here? I'm Jesse Merlin. I'm at Jesse Merlin on Twitter. You might know me as Fong in Street Fighter V, and I'm also Dr. Hill in Reanimator the Musical, and that soundtrack will be coming out later this year at some point.
I love that soundtrack.
Thank you.
Oh no.
Carol.
Unless the answers are cool.
My name is Angelique Rockwood. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram as Angelic Rockwood, the way it sounds. And you'll hear my frustrations about writing queer fantasy cinema, or you can see me on Instagram just dressing like this a lot.
You have some nice looks.
Ah!
think-
Darn it! I did it.
I'll
Killing
believe
it.
it.
It's basically like my
This
whole
is the
Instagram is
look.
like pictures
Is it
of
time?
this.
It is time. Okay. So we have an announcement to make before the end of the show, and this is sugar and spice news.
Yes.
Which is
Good news, everyone. Sorry, had to be done.
which is it mid-July? Are we calling it?
July 13th.
July 13th is going to be the last episode of this iteration of Gather Your Party. So, for various reasons, not the least of which is that I convinced them, like when I came on, I convinced them to just keep the show going a little while longer because I wanted to experiment.
Yeah.
With you?
Yeah, and this is not the end. Taliesin and I are both working on a lot of different things, both on our own shows and other things that are in the works. And so please stay tuned for all of that. This has been the most amazing ride for me. This was one of my first shows that I was ever made a host on 3 years ago, and it has meant the world to me. It has been canceled and brought back and canceled again, and I've seen I have had so many different co-hosts, and it has just been such
Only
a
I have
joy.
survived.
Yeah, Taliesin was the last one, the Highlander of the co-hosts, and so this is not a bad thing. Everybody, trust me. like we were saying with tonight, like sometimes you need to evolve and grow, and the community will still be the same.
And there's still gonna be a community show, and I promise you, the whole point of me coming on the show is I wanted to experiment with you, with a bunch of different ways to interact with the community here, and we now want to take what we've learned, and instead of spending 3 days panically putting together this show, which is so hard to produce, we want to put this out and use those tools to do more crazy cool things. And
this was the gestation period for whatever exciting community show is coming next.
we're gonna be and we're gonna be bringing the lessons that we learned and going out with a bang if we can manage.
Oh yes, you do not want to miss July 13th. It is going to be insane.
You will learn of dolphins.
Yes.
Do not worry.
Oh, that's right. People are asking about the dolphins. Don't worry, we got your dolphins.
We got your dolphins, man.
But and unfortunately, I will be out for the next 2 weeks from Geek and Sundry. Yeah, we talked about this.
God.
I'm going to be in England and Scotland. Keep up with me on my Twitter and Instagram.
You're not my real dad.
Yeah. You will show me respect in my house, Taliesin.
I'll do what I want.
But
Sorry.
yes, we love you all so much, and again, this is not quite the end, but it is the end, but it's not the end.
It's the end of it. It is the beginning of the next end of the next beginning.
Yes, that's right. Every new beginning comes from some other beginning's end. All right, everybody. Thank you so much to our guests. Thank you so much to our crew. Thank you so much also to Twitch for going back and forth with Liz, Fork, and Cooner.
Kind to us.
We sent them all the pictures, and they're like, "Ooh, okay, we gotta make sure you follow the rules, but we're gonna work with you here." So
Thank you, Twinch,
to
for
them.
clenching and just holding tight.
Yeah, and much love to everybody involved with this evening, and I love you, Taliesin.
And I love you too so much. And now I'm covered in glitter. And I can't wait to show you guys what we've been working on, because the future is going to be filled with fun stuff.
All right, everybody. We love you very much. Good night.
Good night.
See you next
lovely, lovely
week.
people. Mwah.